for Schumacher.
Hello and welcome to round 8 of the World Formula One Championship tonight, coming to you from the Silverstone Circuit in England. This is the 54th British Grand Prix since the World Championship began in 1950. And Damon Hill, a big question mark about Damon Hill as we really zero in. A lot of people are calling this the Damon Hill Grand Prix. AJ, he said he's going to retire after this race. Now he's half retracted that through the week. Eddie Jordan doesn't know. Nobody seems to know what he's going to do.
Well, he said he was going to retire before this race as well. I guess at the end of the day, it's his decision, but the only thing is he's mucking the team around him. And if I was Eddie, I'd be saying, look, you know, I'd like you to stay, but for whatever you do, please let me know. I've got to make arrangements. I felt he was quite stupid to retire before his home Grand Prix anyway. I mean, at least he should stick in there and do the British Grand Prix. He has qualified in 6th spot, which is great, and he's just behind Frentzen, so he's proved that he can still get a car around. I was there last year at this circuit, and through some of the corners at Silverstone, which you really have to commit yourself quite heavily into, he was as quick as anybody. In fact, I was really reasonably impressed with him there. But I'd like to see him just finish off the season, let Eddie get enough time to get his new driver for next year, and then call it quits.
Fair enough. All right, let's have a look at qualifying, how it all happened and why they finished where they did on the grid. Silverstone and the Union Jacks were everywhere in support of Damon Hill's last great race. The laconic Brit was determined to climb up the grid. 6th spot, his best qualifying effort this year. Mika Häkkinen was again the driver to beat. The Finn had the McLaren beautifully balanced. Back in the pits, Jackie Stewart got some advice from motorsports junkie, former Beatle George Harrison. Emerson Fittipaldi, also an interested celebrity pitster. Out of the track, Michael Schumacher was trying very, very hard in the Ferrari. This mistake cost him dearly on his final qualifying lap.
Lost the back end, simply trying more than the car is capable of doing, and that's the result.
In the garage, David Coulthard sat waiting to try on one of his now familiar last-minute flyers. French Grand Prix winner Heinz-Harald Frentzen again pipped teammate Hill for a superb 5th grid spot. Eddie Irvine put his Ferrari on the 2nd row alongside Coulthard. But it was the championship leader, Mika Häkkinen, who was the darling of the press with another pole-winning effort.
Well, there you go. Häkkinen yet again on pole with his main protagonist Schumacher next to him, David Coulthard and Irvine behind them. Frentzen and Hill, 2 teammates on the 5th and 6th row. Barrichello, Ralf Schumacher for Williams in 8th, Villeneuve 9th, Alesi 10th, Johnny Herbert 11th, Denez 12th. Zanardi back down there in 13th, Trulli, Panis, Zonta, fairly good showing for him. Fisichella, down a long way for him, and Wirtz, his teammate, the 2 Bennettons not going all that well. Takagi, De La Rosa, Baudouin and Genet.
Some interesting points of interest before going into this race tonight. David Coulthard was recently given the opportunity to experience weightlessness in a Russian zero-gravity aircraft, and doesn't this look like fun? Now, this is an amazing thing. This is inside an aircraft, AJ. There it is. And look at this. Now, obviously, the other guys are weighted down. And, yeah, free fall 7,000 metres to just 30 seconds of weightlessness. That's
it's amazing. When I first heard that, I thought, you know, we're going to do an article about David Coulthard being weightless in an aircraft, and I thought, yeah. So 3,000 other people before him. That's but I didn't realise he had the car in with him.
He's got the car. That's good stuff. Eddie Irvine has slammed Damon Hill's decision to race this weekend's Grand Prix. The outspoken Ferrari driver stated last week that Hill should go and play with his children and leave it to the rest of us who still feel the need. Eddie has had a bit to say this week. He also gave Coulthard a baking too.
Well, Coulthard came back with a beauty, I reckon. He was asked by an English journalist what he felt about all that. With Damon Hill going, would he like to take up the mantle as the premier POM driver with Irvine? And he said, well, Irvine's got the mouth, I've got the talent, we'll see who gets there.
Williams will lose their title sponsor Winfield at the end of the season. The cigarette brand, which is owned by Rothmans International, announced that it will not be continuing with the team next year. You know a bit about that.
I think in all honesty, the reason behind that is we all know that BMW are coming into Williams fairly comprehensively, and I believe, quite rightly, Winfield said if we're going to sponsor a car, we want the livery in all our colours. BMW said, hey, we're supplying the engines, we want most of the livery. So I think there's been a bit of an amicable situation where Winfield has said, right, well, if we can't have the whole car, we may go somewhere else or pull out, and BMW will have the majority of the signage on the car.
Sure. Just sort of shot there of Panis getting in the T car in the garage, so obviously he's had some problems there. Toyota have confirmed their intentions to enter Formula One with their own team. Now, the speculation had the Japanese giant hooking up with an existing team to supply engines, but that's now been ruled out. Toyota's Formula One department will be based in its European headquarters in Cologne.
Yeah, I've been there. That's where they operate their rally car. That's where they also built the very quick Le Mans cars. It's a fabulous setup. It's probably already nearly as good as any Formula One setup in the world. And I would imagine if they do take on the added responsibility of making a Formula One car, it'll be just sensational.
Riding with Damon Hill as he makes his way round to Grid Up. Now, Ford will decide at the end of the month whether the Stewart Grand Prix team will be rebadged as Jaguar for the 2000 season.
Well, if I was a betting man, I'd say it'd be called a Jaguar.
And a really nice touch here for the Australians. After winning the French Grand Prix 2 weeks ago, Heinz-Harald Frentzen flew his Australian race engineer, Sam Michael. He's 28. He was born in Perth. He flew him over to Monaco for a party to help celebrate his victory. Now, this youngster was tied up with Lotus. He studied at the University of Canberra. He's very highly regarded in the Jordan team, and he's basically taken over looking after Frentzen. And Frentzen said that since he's been there, he feels comfortable and he feels really happy with the Australians' advice.
Well, I guess it was another Aussie that gave him his break, Peter Collins, when Peter was running Lotus. But it is very important that a driver has a very close rapport with his engineer, obviously. And if you can have a really good close rapport with your engineer, you just get that much done that much more quickly.
Well, of course, you had that with Patrick Head.
Absolutely. You know, it's priceless if two guys can get together like that. And just, you know, my relationship with Patrick was that, you know, I only had to say half the amount of words I would normally, and he knew what I was talking about and would do something about it. And that's the rapport you need.
This Silverstone circuit, I mean, obviously the Brits have turned out. It's 25 degrees, blue skies, as you can see there. Perfect for the race tonight.
Well, that'd be right. I was there last year. It was 5 degrees and raining.
So Damon Hill, I mean, a big question mark hanging over his head at the moment. I guess we'd all like to see him finish the season out. He's been quite a character since coming into Formula One.
Oh, look, you know, he's a terrific bloke. He's got a great sense of humour. You know, some of his drives have been pretty ordinary in the past, and obviously, you know, if he and Schumacher went ever into a corner together, you knew who was always going to come out in the front. That was always going to be Schumacher. But he's a really good, capable Formula One driver, and I think that he probably feels he hasn't been given the equipment that he should have been this year, and I think that's instigated a lot of this retirement talk.
Well, all the proceeds he wins out of this race tonight, any money that he's earned out of this, he's giving to the Down syndrome people in England. That's fantastic.
It is. It's a great gesture.
Well, everybody intently looking now as the cars come round. I guess it's time for us to take you over to Silverstone. And, of course, we link up now with your commentators, Murray Walker and Martin Brundle.
And as you look at the grid on the right, it's Mika Häkkinen in pole position.
Häkkinen got his car slightly skewed towards Michael Schumacher. I think he wants to repay the compliment of Canada, where Schumacher sliced across in front of him. But you want to be on the left-hand side of this racetrack for the first corner without any doubt.
So there is...
Listen to them, they're all...
That's Johnny Herbert and Villeneuve in front of us. And it is... Go at Silverstone! Now! Nice one, Häkkinen. Schumacher's got David Coulthard right alongside him. Somebody left.
Two cars stalled, two McLarens at the front. Tremendous getaway from both Häkkinen and Coulthard. But two cars left on the grid. Quite a long lap here. They've got 90 seconds, let's say, to get those cars out of the way. Lots of little slip roads where they can put them. So I think we should be all right to stay under green flag conditions, Murray.
I think one of the Zanardi and the two Ferraris fighting each other. Eddie Irvine coming and the red flag. The race is being stopped. The race is being stopped as it was last year, but for very... But
that's Schumacher, isn't it? I think that's Schumacher not realising that he's probably, I suspect, somebody slowed down under reds, and Michael's come across him at a great rate of knots. Has he hurt his legs? I don't think he should have done. He's hit those tyres, although at quite a rate of knots. But Michael's struggling to get out of the car a little bit. I wonder if he's hurt his legs. This is, look, front wheel, front left off, front right. Michael's slamming the steering wheel. I don't know whether it's through frustration that he's out of the race, or frustration because he knows he's injured something.
Well, whatever, Michael Schumacher at best will have to run back and get in the spare car for a restart, but it looks as though that is most certainly not the case. The car is jammed well and truly. I was disgusted, incidentally, to see some spectators in front of me standing up and clapping their hands and cheering as they saw that on the big screen. This is not at all funny.
I fear Michael Schumacher's damaged his legs in some way. So he clearly is not in serious risk overall, but I fear that he's got some kind of damage to his right leg, because once the steering wheel is off, there's plenty of room to get out of those Formula One cars. So Michael slammed the steering wheel as he went in the wall. I thought initially it might be because, how did this happen? I'm out of the race already.
Yes.
But I think it might be more than that. I wonder, we'll see a replay, I wonder if one of the McLarens lifted off for the red flag and Michael may not realise it, or something like that. Or, remember, he was trying to pass Eddie Irvine going down Hangar Straight. I think Irvine beat him off the line.
Well,
and,
needless to say, there is acute misery in the Ferrari. You saw Jean Todt looking very concerned as he looked at the screen, and now Michael Schumacher is being lifted out of the car. That is a very unhappy Ross Brawn, who is the technical director.
A collar on Michael Schumacher's neck, but that's standard procedure now, so I don't think...
well, for sure, I think Michael Schumacher is not going to be taking the restart, and you could be seeing the end of his World Championship chances for 1999, and no one would have wanted it to end this way.
Is that Stowe gravel trap, I think, Murray? We haven't actually seen him other than spearing across the gravel trap. It is Stowe gravel trap. So they go in there about 190 miles an hour, and well, the left front is already on. I wonder if he contacted with Irvine, or if the McLaren, because looking back down the field, one of the stewards had lifted off and cars diving round him. Drivers perceive and understand and react to a red flag situation at different times, and of course the closing speed then just becomes absolutely enormous. I don't really see why they put the red...
Let's have a look again. They're coming down to Stowe, and Eddie Irvine was right alongside Michael Schumacher.
Oh, he's locked his inside. Oh, he's locked his brakes. It's as simple as that. It's a mistake. Look, and now he can't slow down. A simple driving mistake there from Michael Schumacher. Snatched the front brakes. This often happens when the temperatures are not high enough. Look, and he gets in Irvine's slipstream, pulls up on the inside, which is the correct line. Irvine not really fighting him off, and then Michael snatches a brake, look, and then snatches both of them, panics, and just stays on the pedal straight to the scene of the accident, and that is a big impact, Murray.
Yeah, at a very considerable speed. I mean, you approach Stowe very quickly indeed, even on that lap. He approached it at about 190 miles an hour. He would have lost a lot of speed, but as you can see, he still went in with a colossal bang.
Yes, he's gone through all three layers. We're going to see it from Damon Hill's now. He goes through all 3 layers of the tyres and connects with the barrier. So he's had something like a 20 or 30 G deceleration.
Yeah, a nasty shock for Damon, of course, seeing that in front of him. A great cloud of tyre smoke as it locks up on the tarmac and goes straight. You see the tyre marks as straight as a tramway, straight across the gravel, straight into the tyres.
This is the problem with the gravel. It really is to stop a car that's spinning, so that it can dig in a little bit. Because of the undertray, the flat undertray, Murray, of the modern Formula One car, it just toboggans across the top. And as you saw, no deceleration whatsoever, no way of changing the trajectory of that car.
I am very, very unhappy to see these pictures. A truly great driver, a double world champion, has been taken out of this race and obviously injured. James Allen, what's the news?
Well, it's a sombre and absolutely stunned atmosphere actually down here at Ferrari. They can't quite believe it's happened. There's absolutely no raw emotion, there's no rushing around or panicking. They're just sort of saying, what happened? And they're blinking their eyes and sort of not quite sure what to do with themselves. I think they're not expecting Michael Schumacher to have an incident like this. It's very, very big impact, as you were saying, Martin. And there is some speculation amongst us pit reporters that maybe the throttle stuck open at that point, but Ferrari are not sure. Obviously, Michael didn't have time to get on the radio as he was heading towards the Armco barriers, but a very big impact. Certainly, he'll be taking no further part in the race. And back to you, Murray.
I find it very hard to believe that Michael Schumacher made a mistake, a tremendously experienced driver.
But remember what I was saying before, though, Murray. The temperatures of the brakes and the tyres are not fully up. You've done that warm-up lap, you still can't get them where you need them. And by and large, that is the first major braking area of the lap. So it's possible, it's very easy to snatch. He snatched one brake first rather than... I think if his throttle had stuck, he'd have had all 4 wheels locked up.
Eddie Irvine, a worrying time for him too. So Eddie Irvine sitting, waiting in the Ferrari for the restart, which will obviously take quite a long time. They're going to have to take Michael Schumacher away on the stretcher. Let's have a look at it again.
Here we go again. Michael coming
Schumacher
up
on the left, Eddie Irvine on the right.
Irvine giving him no problem, but Michael blocks the right front and then blocks them both when he realises he's going straight on. And look, now you see both front wheels stopped. Well, I think if the throttle had been stuck open, the rear wheels would have been spinning all the way in, and I'll have another look at that next time. But
well, here it is again.
I'm pretty certain it's a snatched brake.
Yeah, let's hear it. Here it is again. Michael Schumacher on the inside. You see, so Eddie Irvine had already got ahead of him as they turn in for the corner. Michael locks up and straight as an arrow skates over the top of the gravel trap. There's been a lot of talk about turning these big gravel traps, which don't seem to stop the cars at all, into a concrete area in the belief that they would offer more resistance to locked wheels and tyres, and the driver could even spin the car out of trouble. Mika Häkkinen there, and
I wonder why the red flag and not the safety car. I guess because the safety car can't pick the cars up until after they've crossed the start-finish line.
There's the answer. They are still around.
No, I mean, but why did they throw the red in the first place? Well, because I think this accident happened before the red flag went out, probably. But clearly, before they can pick up the drivers.
There's Michael Schumacher's wheel and suspension off the Ferrari, which gives you an indication of the severity and the impact of the hit as the front of the car went into the tyre wall. I am not at all happy seeing these pictures. The crowd is totally subdued, as indeed you would expect them to be. They came here for a day of joy and pleasure to follow motor racing at its very highest level, and you don't expect this to happen. And seeing those sheets go up to stop people looking at what is happening to Michael Schumacher on the stretcher reminds me of past situations I don't even want to think about, to be quite honest. And
but I mean, he's not had any head injuries or anything. I mean, he was talking about, he was looking down in the right hand, at his right hand leg. I suspect that a bit of suspension has come in the cockpit, and they're mounted inside the cockpit, although they're boxed in.
Yes.
And they are protected to stop the wishbones. Many times racing drivers have had the wishbone of the suspension piercing their leg, and I fear that's what may have happened to Michael. There was some dust coming off the rear tyres as he's skating across the gravel trap. I still don't believe it was a stuck throttle, but we'll find out later on.
Well, we'll know later. Meantime, no effort to remove the car, and understandably so, because first of all they have to move Michael himself, get him away from where he is now into more advanced medical facilities. The first stop may be the Silverstone Medical Centre, which is probably the most advanced and best equipped in the world. There are a very large number of doctors here, and the medical centre is fully equipped, but it's more likely, if he's got leg damage, that they would take him away by helicopter to Northampton Hospital, where presumably there are even better facilities. As you can see, the car's now reforming on the grid. We've already seen Mika Häkkinen, David Coulthard there, discussing obviously what happened to Michael Schumacher. There's a significant gap on the grid there with Mika Häkkinen's car in pole position. The gap where, hello, there is Michael Schumacher being removed from the gravel trap.
He's waving, look. That's Schumi with his arm up in the air saying,
well, thank
I'm
heavens
not too
for that.
bad.
Thank heavens for that. That is more of a relief to me than I can tell you, to see that he's obviously conscious, and to the extent that he possibly can be in these circumstances, comparatively happy with the way he's being looked after.
The sheets are to protect him from the indignity of cameras close up and photographers zooming in and getting shots of him not looking and feeling too good. But I think I'm expecting this is going to be restricted to some right leg damage.
Yes, so very often in the past we've had situations not unlike this, and then we've discovered afterwards that the damage is comparatively minor, and let's all keep our fingers crossed and hope that that is the case here with Michael Schumacher, as he's now in the ambulance ready to be driven away to those medical facilities I was talking to you about. And I don't know whether he's going to the Silverstone Medical Centre or elsewhere.
Well, he's had some pretty mighty shunts, has Michael, but I don't recall him breaking anything.
Never anything like this. He's never hurt himself. No, he had a massive one in Belgium one year. I remember he went backwards into the tyre wall. He had one or two big ones in the Benetton as well.
Yeah, Suzuka. I remember one of his early races in '91 where he was using Piquet's car and stuck it in the wall backwards.
It's a reminder of the fact, Martin, that a lot of people look very lightly on motor racing and think it isn't hazardous and dangerous anymore. It is. Everything is done that possibly can be done to make the cars and the circuit safe. There's a safety commission led by Professor Sid Watkins, who's the top medical man and is here and will be responsible for Michael Schumacher. But no matter what you do, you can make motor racing safer, but you can never make it safe. And Charlie Whiting there on the left, being driven by Alex Ribeiro, the Brazilian ex-Formula 3 driver in the Mercedes-Benz safety car. And I think it's a good time for us to leave Silverstone for a while and take a break.
Welcome back. Now, AJ, that is the complete front end of the car there. That's the monocoque.
The big square thing that you can see is actually the brake pedal, which allows them to do left-foot braking. They've got the accelerator obviously to the right of that, but because that pedal is so large, they can brake with their right or their left foot. A lot of them, well, most of them do left-foot braking because they're all semi-automatic gearboxes, but the whole front section of that car's come away, which is a bit naughty, quite frankly. It's a bit of a no-no because these things are meant to be designed that the nose cone is able to take that sort of an impact, and quite clearly that's just broken straight from the car.
With your experience, does it concern you that part of the car completely broke away like that?
Well, too right it does. I mean, it shouldn't just break away. It should stay on the car and protect the driver, his foot. But I couldn't help but think, you know, those tyres that he went into are not that old. They're a reasonably sort of new additive to the circuit. And where he went off, which I think is not Woodkid, it was not Abbey, but it's there used to be just a wooden fence there. Then they had Armco in front of the wooden fence. So you just dread to think what would have happened if those tyres weren't there.
Well, Murray Walker was talking about the medical centre. I mean, there's 50 doctors. And I mean, obviously all well-qualified doctors in that centre. I mean, he's got the best care he could have, but at the moment we would think that perhaps lower leg damage, because there was one shot there where he's actually trying to get out the... Yeah, look at the car.
See, no nose on it whatsoever. It's just really from not far back from the dashboard, nothing.
Well, you could see him actually trying to get out of the car, and he couldn't get out of the car, so there'd be a lower leg damage, we would think.
Well, I think what normally happens is that initially, with a little bit of shock, the tendency is not to know really how badly you have damaged your legs, and he was slamming the steering wheel and gesturing, and then he got his safety belts off, and then he attempted to get out of the car but simply could not move. And what Martin said before could be a possibility, that the wishbones that come into either side of the monocoque, they are meant to be in a box section that stops those wishbones from protruding in, but gee, at that speed, you know, nothing's going to really stop them.
Yeah, well, I think we've got another shot coming up now of when he actually hits the wall. Now, watch this. Here's the speed of the impact. Bang. And watch here, because you'll actually see him trying to get out of the car.
Yeah, that's okay. Now you watch, his arms go up and down a few times. He attempts, well, he does get his safety belts off, and then he tries to get out of the car.
Yeah, well,
we've
the shot wasn't quite long enough, but there was a shot of him actually trying to heave himself up out of the car. Well, that's the point of view from Damon Hill's car, where he came through there. Jackie Stewart involved there. So there's not a lot happening at the moment. The grid is ready to start again. We'll take a break and come back quickly, and hopefully for the restart. Welcome back. Now, here's a replay again of Schumacher going to that tyre wall. Now, we should get a better angle this time, AJ, of him actually trying to get out of the car. I mean, that's enormous speed there, isn't it?
Well, there you go. The dust is settling now. You'll see his hands come up in the air in a minute. And he's undoing his safety belts just after this. He's just got them up off his shoulder, and now he tries to raise himself out of the car. So quite clearly very conscious and very aware of what's going on.
So he's trying to get out of the car there.
He's just obviously caught.
And whether his leg is pinned, we reckon about just, what, a shade over 300 Ks?
Well, certainly over 300 Ks going into the right-hander. He would have scrubbed off a little bit of speed through going down through the gears to turn in. But certainly by the time he left that track, I'd still say he'd be doing it well over 200 Ks at least.
I was asking a question about the Australian-designed airbags that they were using for the motorcycles. Perhaps they couldn't withstand impact of that speed, but they were a great idea with the bikes. They use them quite successfully.
Yeah, well, they have tried them in Formula One. I don't really know, quite honestly, why they don't still use them, but they have tried them, and they've obviously opted for the tyres.
Well, we've got audio back to Silverstone. We'll go back to Murray and Martin Brundle.
Well, there's about 8 minutes now, according to my watch, before the new formation lap at 20 minutes to 2, as Eddie Irvine impassively sits in the Ferrari. Real pressure on him, not only wondering whether his car might have a problem, but knowing that he is going to be literally carrying the Ferrari banner from 4th position on the grid, with not one but 2 McLarens in front of him. Some people may be wondering whether they will withdraw Eddie Irvine. Well, frankly, I see no reason why they should withdraw Eddie Irvine at the moment, because...
Well, they will have spoken to Michael Schumacher, because we know he's fully conscious, so Michael will have filled them in on what happened, whether it was a blocking of a brake, as I suspected, or possibly the throttle, possibly a steering problem, and we're surmising on a lot of this anyway. And now they'll have the...
Eddie doesn't look too worried,
he doesn't look too upset about it, does he, in a way, but he's got his race to run this afternoon. And now they'll have the telemetry, download that, so they have a lot of information before they... why are they starting
the only good thing...
Why are they working on the T car?
The only good thing I can tell you about the Michael Schumacher situation is that there is no fitter man in the pit lane, and very few anything like as fit. Yeah,
well, they're not expecting Michael Schumacher to come waltzing in there, of course. They're set, because Schumacher always has the T car set up for him. Let's say there's another first lap incident and another restart, and it won't be the first time that's happened.
There's plenty of precedence for that.
Plenty, and so now they're getting the T car ready in case Irvine needs it this afternoon.
So what sort of things will they be doing? You're asking yourselves. Well, actually, the way Schumacher and Irvine want their cars set up is virtually identical, so there won't be very much to do. They would have to change the seat. There's the new tyre wall. A fine job has been done, as ever, by the British Marshals, which is no less than you would expect. They are the best in the world. So we're going to leave Silverstone again for a little while, but we'll be back.
Welcome back. Nice to have you company right around Australia. This is Silverstone, of course. The car's on the parade lap now for the second of the starts this evening. Word we've just had from the medical centre is Not that bad. It's not that good. It's just very vague at the moment. We hope to get a report out of there in the next couple of minutes or so, but obviously some leg damage has had. His brother, Michael Schumacher's brother, has been over very quickly before getting back into the car, and we just had a bit of word back that Damon Hill may be encouraged to stay on with Jordan if he can get a decent result tonight. So that's about all that's happened since we've been away. We'll take you straight back now to Murray Walker.
Continuous right at Luffield, Luffield 1 and 2, then into the kink it is now at Woodcote. There was a time when Woodcote was one of the most demanding corners in Formula One. It was emasculated completely for a time with the chicane, but has now been returned to a lot of its former glory, albeit with a much slower approach as the result of the advent of the long horseshoe-shaped Luffield 1 and 2 bends. So now the track temperature here is some 38 degrees. Now that's pretty hot. It's not as hot as it has been this year, but it's still pretty hot. Demanding for the tyres, demanding for the drivers. A lot of stress on the drivers, knowing that the race was stopped for the reason it was stopped, as we sit with Damon Hill looking ahead at Irvine. To the left, the yellow Jordan of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Further up the grid as the tail enders, Luca Badoer and Marc Genet in their Minardis. There they are, come into line. And there are 21 starters for the restart of the British Grand Prix.
Lucky for those two cars that stalled on the line. We never quite saw who they were, but here's the lights, Murray.
That's it. Explosive start from Häkkinen, and Frentzen attacking, trying to get between. Eddie Irvine has got ahead of Coulthard. Irvine in the Ferrari ahead of Coulthard, and Frentzen has made an excellent start. So has Ralf Schumacher in the Williams, but that was a magnificent start for Eddie Irvine.
Another car on the line.
That's Pedro de la Rosa who is on the line. Let's hope they can get him out of the way. We don't want another restart. But now it is Häkkinen, Irvine, Coulthard, Frentzen. Damon Hill has been passed by Ralf Schumacher, but is fighting back. There's Schumacher, there is Hill, Rubens Barrichello, Alesi and Deniz. And Mika Häkkinen has got the lead and has already got clear air between himself and Eddie Irvine, who is already rising to the challenge magnificently. He's done it by passing David Coulthard. He's second in the race, and he started in 4th position.
We just heard Michael Schumacher has a broken right leg and is conscious and is on his way by helicopter to hospital. So relatively good news, I guess, about Michael Schumacher.
Well, it's great news in the light of what might have happened. Bad news in the light of him, ideally, obviously, having a clear race.
Is that a safety car? I think I can see the safety car is on the pit straight, Murray. So
no indicator. Yes,
yeah.
You're absolutely right. Is that for Takagi? Whatever,
yeah.
Here they come.
Yeah, they had to commit to that. Although they've got Takagi's car out of the way, by the time they all got around, they had to commit. So De La Rosa, apparently, they had to admit, they had to commit to the safety car. So they all close up. Well, we're having a job to get this one up and running, aren't we?
Yeah, the arrows, incidentally, just a soupçon of information for you, going to be using Supertech engines next year. There is Pedro de la Rosa, the Spanish driver, in his first season of Formula One, pushed in the arrows, so the safety car will be back in again very quickly indeed, now that the problem has been removed from the track. And the two men so far, in just that short distance we've had, are Eddie Irvine and Ralf Schumacher. Irvine for getting ahead of Coulthard, Schumacher for getting ahead of Damon Hill. And it's the old story now. The safety car will come in, and remember, no one is allowed to pass until they have crossed the official start line.
Yes, and that's a shot of Schumi being taken to the helicopter. I think you'll find coming into the right-hand corner of your picture now. So Michael Schumacher on the way to, I think it'll be Northampton General Hospital, I assume. But So up behind the safety car. Now remember, you've got Coulthard behind Irvine. Remember what happened in Canada, Murray, when Coulthard tried to move on Irvine and they clashed. And David will be wanting to get past Irvine very, very quickly to make sure he stays in touch with Hakkinen, who's blistering around here.
Yeah, Hakkinen racing away. He's got to... Well, he's keeping up with the safety car, of course, driven by Alex Ribeiro. Oliver Gavin, who normally drives the safety car, drove in the Formula 3000 race yesterday. And I see safety car, Hakkinen, Irvine, Coulthard, Frentzen, Ralf Schumacher. Yellow car is Damon Hill. White car is Rubens Barrichello. Behind Rubens Barrichello's white Stewart is Jean Alesi. Then it's Pedro Diniz and Johnny Herbert.
Lights are out, he's coming in, Murray, so this is the restart. It's going to be a good scramble down to the first corner. Who can try and make anything of it? Irvine's the one closest to Hakkinen. Has he got enough straight line speed? Irvine had to get out of it coming out of Luffield. That gives Coulthard a run at him, beautifully in the slipstream. Can Coulthard do anything down the outside? It's going to be tough from there, very tough from there. Try and take him on the inside on the way out, but Eddie defended his line well.
And Heinz-Harald Frentzen still there ahead of Ralf Schumacher and Damon Hill, but it's giving Mika Hakkinen the chance he wanted to break away. But Eddie Irvine is the most improved driver of 1999 from a very, very high level. It's not as though Eddie Irvine was not good before. He was, but he's had an absolutely magnificent season. And the rumours are that he has already signed for Stewart in 1999. I emphasise it's very much a rumour. And he's been getting more and more fractious about having to play number 2 to Michael Schumacher. Well, he's not having to play number 2 for him now. He is number 1 in the Ferrari team at Silverstone, and already he's ahead of Coulthard. And it's Hakkinen, Irvine, Coulthard, Frentzen, Ralf Schumacher coming through to complete the first lap. And of course, it's still a full 60-lap race. The British Grand Prix at Silverstone, they're coming out of the two left-handers now into Luffield. And Alesi is tucked up well behind Rubens Barrichello, and Johnny Herbert has made good progress too. So across the line they go. That's the lap completed. Hakkinen, Irvine, Coulthard, Frentzen, Schumacher, Damon Hill, Barrichello, Alesi, Johnny Herbert. And Herbert is in the top 10. Both the Stewarts are in the top 10.
There's no Coulthard on the computer. Whether Coulthard didn't trigger it, I haven't seen him on the racetrack. At the moment,
yes, he's fifth.
No, but he's slipping back down. I think the computer's had a bit of a wobbly. Let's have a look on the racetrack.
Well, let's have a look at the track and see, because now we're looking at the Stewart. There is Frentzen. And
yeah, Coulthard's on track. He's not showing up on the computer as having passed the start-finish line. A little glitch there, but Coulthard's still third in this race.
Well and truly there. The McLarens are first and third. The sole Ferrari is sandwiched between them. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, the winner of the French Grand Prix, and the man who has adapted so magnificently to the Jordan team, is still there in fourth position as Ron Dennis watches the race. Now, you have to say that Hakkinen is in a very commanding position. I remind you that he was fastest in all the sessions before the race began. He was fastest this morning in the warm-up. He has already won in Brazil and Spain and Canada this year, leads the World Championship as the reigning world champion. So he's very, very well settled down.
Yes, he's been a McLaren driver since 1993. I can't imagine how many thousands of laps he's done around this circuit as Mika Hakkinen. Could easily drive it blindfolded, and he is blisteringly fast, never more so than this weekend. De La Rosa already out of the race. The computers have gone down completely now, so no technical information to us.
First, we will have to adopt the old-fashioned principle of looking out of the window and seeing what is happening. What is happening? And what is happening as we get a replay of the restart. Now, let's have a look at it.
Coulthard gets away well and then seems to bog down. Frentzen nearly went between the pair of them, had to get out of it. Irvine scampering off into second place, trying to have a bit of a go around the outside of Hakkinen. So Coulthard not getting a good run through, and somebody getting squeezed out there. I think it must have been Alesi by Hill.
Alesi and Hill. Here it is again. Now let's have a look. Look back at Damon Hill and let's see what happens. There is the yellow car. Ralf Schumacher goes past him as they go up to Copse the first time. There's Barrichello challenging and Alesi trying to go round the outside. And Damon Hill drifts sideways. Alesi almost goes under the gravel trap. Damon Hill gets back in front of Rubens Barrichello. And Takagi brings up the rear, and here is the safety car.
Now this is Coulthard slipstreaming. This is on the restart after the safety car. You saw a replay. Coulthard slipstreaming well, goes down the outside. Irvine doing the one and only thing he should be doing, and that's keeping the inside line. You'll never get around the outside. It's a 160-mile-an-hour corner, so Coulthard nailed in third, Irvine up to second.
David Coulthard has clearly not been at all completely happy with the McLaren all weekend. He was complaining about not being able to get the rear end of the car handling the way he wanted it to. Mika Häkkinen, on the other hand, was completely happy. We're riding now with Damon Hill
into Beckett,
chasing Ralf Schumacher ahead of him in the Williams. Now, the Williams is a very much modified motor car for this race. They have a new floor, they have new side pods, they have a new exhaust system, and the results have been absolutely superb. Because Schumacher, Ralf, was well up. He started 8th on the grid, but he was higher than that in some of the sessions. And at last, the Williams seems to be making progress in terms of on-track performance. Because, look, we are riding with world champion Damon Hill in the Jordan Honda with the new engine, and that's developing a lot more power. And yet, Ralf Schumacher magnificently is staying ahead. Obviously, any thoughts of his brother, as I said, have been put out of his mind by the on-track action.
And we also have to assume that Ferrari haven't yet found out anything specific about Michael Schumacher's car, because Irvine very much still on the racetrack.
So, wonderful shot this. We haven't had as much on-car action as we might have liked this year, but we couldn't have a better car to have a camera on than Damon Hill's Jordan here at Silverstone as Mika Häkkinen leads. Eddie Irvine, now let's see how close David Coulthard is. There's the answer. That's the gap to Frentzen. That's the gap to Schumacher. That's the gap to Hill. That's the gap to Barrichello, followed by Alesi. Here comes Johnny Herbert. That is Pedro Diniz. There is Villeneuve, followed by Zanardi and Trulli, and the rest of them pouring through. The green-topped helmet is Tora Takagi, and now the gap between Mika Häkkinen and Eddie Irvine is definitely increasing. The gap between Coulthard and Frentzen is increasing. The competitors are getting spread out. There are still 21, but into the pits comes one of the Minardis. It's Luca Badoer. This is the first pit stop we've had during the race. It's obviously not a routine one. The earliest we would have expected for a two-stop strategy is on lap 20.
Yes, Badoer's obviously had a trip across the gravel or a curb or something. They're changing the nose, or maybe tripped over another player. So back now with the leaders, where the computers are completely down. There's no sign whatsoever of gaps between drivers or laps complete. There's the helicopter taking Michael Schumacher off to hospital. So helicopter up and away. And remember, the teams on the pit wall have no information either, because we share the same information system. So at the moment, everybody's working by very much getting their stopwatches out and having a look at the track as in the good old days.
Yeah, a word about that as you watch Irvine and Coulthard. In the old days, there used to be mechanical lap charts, people writing numbers down on pieces of paper as the cars went past, and we had the old turnip stopwatches, clockwork stopwatches. Now all these cars carry electronic equipment, and when they cross the line, they send a message to the computer, I have crossed the line, and that message goes to hundreds of monitors all around the circuit, the commentary boxes and the pit positions on the grid. You see Eddie Irvine looking at his, absolutely blank. There is no information except the Union Jack, and I've got that, so they're no better off than we are, and I'm no better off than they are. And this is transforming the situation, because all these teams work on the most sophisticated technology to decide on this. That's Luca Badoer out of the race, apparently. So he came into the pitch, you'll remember, a little while ago. Luca Badoer in the Minardi is the first retirement apart from Schumacher.
Double waved yellows. That's a very, very fast part of the racetrack to be parked on the outside, and they'll need to, I hope that thing's not stuck in gear. I hope his emergency clutch system works, because they need to pull that out of the way quickly. But for the moment, the cars are going to have to go into the first part of Beckett's under double waved yellows. It's 160 miles an hour as they enter that part of the racetrack. So I hope we're not in for another safety car situation. They should be able to recover it as long as it's not stuck in gear.
Mika Häkkinen looking calm and serene, as he always does. Now, this is a tremendously complicated motor car that he's driving, designed by Adrian Newey and his team at McLaren in Woking. And we don't know what is under that skin, because obviously the McLaren team is not going to be telling anybody what innovative things they have got. But we know that there is some enormously advanced Formula One technology, and Formula One technology is advanced any time. And it was believed to be because of that the cars were comparatively unreliable by their high standards. We're back again with Damon Hill. We're on lap 9, incidentally, in this 60-lap race, the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. But as I was saying, the McLaren team seem to have beaten their reliability bogies, which have particularly affected the unfortunate David Coulthard, who has retired 4 times this year, in comparison with Mika Häkkinen, who has just stopped twice.
Let's watch Hill breaking down into Abbey chicane, 70 miles an hour, then accelerating hard straight up to 150 over the little crest into bridge. Oh, feathering the throttle quite a lot. It's quite warm on the track this afternoon. They're carrying something like 80 kilos of fuel. So car's a little bit fat and heavy compared to qualifying, and Hill's somewhat less committed through there because he has less grip.
Now, you can make your judgment when you see the on-car stuff from Damon Hill's car about how much closer, if at all, he is getting to Ralf Schumacher. We can't tell you in terms of time, for the reason that we haven't got the computer information that we normally rely on. But I can tell you for sure that there is Mika Häkkinen. Eddie Irvine is continuing to stave off David Coulthard. And yet again, Mika Häkkinen is showing that of the 2 McLaren drivers, he's the chap that's got the best handle on the car. After all, David Coulthard did start in 2nd position. He allowed Eddie Irvine to get ahead of him. He's not making any progress in terms of catching Eddie Irvine. There is the Ferrari, or there was the Ferrari, and you just failed to see David Coulthard behind him. There it is, there's the first 3. Häkkinen, Irvine, Coulthard. And that is Jean Alesi, who is chasing Rubens Barrichello. There he is in the Stewart. Now, the Stewart has got this new Ford V10 engine in it. The chassis has settled down extremely well. Alesi pushing hard. He wants to get past Barrichello, and I believe if he could pull away. Yeah,
not a stellar weekend for the Stewart Ford team, but Alesi's doing a good job in this race. Had a little nibble up the inside there into the Abbey chicane. He'll have to be an awful lot closer than that, because the braking distance here is about 90 metres in that corner, and to make more than a car's length on somebody else is virtually impossible. But nonetheless, Alesi chasing like a little terrier dog in his 159th Grand Prix.
Having scored just 1 World Championship point there. He's won 1 Grand Prix in his career. 1997 in Canada, earlier than that, when he was driving for Ferrari. So look at the way Rubens Barrichello, and Rubens incidentally says you would expect me as a Brazilian to regard the Brazilian Grand Prix circuit as being my home one and to know it better than any other. Far from it. He says, I know Silverstone better than any other because I've done so many racing laps here. He drove for 4 years for the Jordan team, which is based just across the road from the main entrance at Silverstone. Now he's with Stewart, who operate from Milton Keynes, just about 12 miles away. And like most of the drivers here, he knows Silverstone extremely well. So, Frentzen, Schumacher now, I do believe visually that Ralf Schumacher is a bit closer to Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Ooh.
He certainly seems to be further away from Damon Hill.
Yeah, Damon Hill getting well out of shape there, trying very hard coming out of Abbey Chicane, got on the throttle early and had to correct it. This is Frentzen, of course, who's leading that pack, and as ever, Ralf Schumacher, he has not got the fastest car on the racetrack. Even Frank Williams, Sir Frank would agree to that, but Ralf is always plugging away every race this season to put himself in points contention.
Now, fortunately, unlike any other circuit in the world, I can talk to the man who is producing this programme. We haven't got any computer information, but if we get a long shot somewhere where we can see all the cars coming towards us, we can tell you who they all are. Mika Häkkinen is first. Thank you, I've got it. Here is Eddie Irvine, who is second. There is David Coulthard, who is fourth. Just look at the gap before Heinz Frentzen comes through in fourth position. Fifth is Ralf Schumacher. Sixth is Damon Hill. He's still in the points. Seventh in the white Stuart is Rubens Barrichello, followed by Jean Alesi, eighth. Johnny Herbert is ninth, and Pedro Diniz is in 10th position. Jacques Villeneuve is 11th. Behind him, Zanardi is 12th. Trulli, 13th. Fisichella, Zonta, Wurz, and then Olivier Panis in the spare car, who managed to get out at the end of come out of the pit lane. So there we are. I hope you wrote them all down.
Well done, Murray. And I think Panis would have benefited, of course, from the red flag situation. He would have been able to take the fully restarted race.
Well, that's it. That's the reason that Panis is comparatively well up, and we'll pick out the tail enders for you later on during the race. They do not include Luca Badoer, of course, who has retired. As far as I know, there are just 2 retirements at the present moment. The unfortunate Michael Schumacher with that broken leg, which we hope is a simple break and won't take too long for him to get back into racing again. And Alesi is the man who is closest to the man in front of him at the present moment as we rejoin 6th position Damon Hill, the world champion of 1996, with a victory for Jordan and 21 victories for Williams behind him.
OK, on the edge of your seats, everybody. You're in this Formula 1 car heading down Hanger Straight. You're on the left-hand side, ready for the right-hander of Stowe. Don't turn in too early. Now Apex Lane, 105 miles an hour. Take the curb on the left, down the hill, over the little blind crest of Vale. Brake desperately hard, 170 down to about 55. Lots of curb there from Damon. Sawtooth curve puts a tremendous vibration through the car, feeding the power in, correcting the back end as he comes through Club, heading slightly uphill towards Abbey. Again, he wants to be on the right-hand side. It's a left-hander at the end. Brake now, he's picked his own braking point, loads the curve again. Can he, how hard? He short shifts, so trying to reduce the amount of power going to the rear wheels. Bridge, feathering again on the throttle, immediately over to the right. And now Luffield, sorry, not Luffield. Brooklands, slowest corner on the circuit. This is the one they were all missing yesterday. And now it's Luffield finally, a long, long right-hander, very difficult corner. You always want to go earlier than the car's ready. Into Woodcote one more time, past the main grandstands. Check your pit board on the right-hand side. Now try to get ready for the challenge of Copse Corner. Here it comes, 190, just feathered, 5th gear on the throttle already. And again, plenty of space there for Damon. He's driving within himself.
Yes, and this certainly indicates that the motivation which Damon Hill freely admitted that he had lost after the French Grand Prix is very much back here at Silverstone. He's still in the points, 6th position. 21 cars started this race, 18 are still left, with the retirements of Michael Schumacher, Luca Badoer and Pedro de la Rosa. So that is 1 Ferrari out, 1 Minardi out and 1 Arrows out as we look into the McLaren team garage. Now the Jordan team garage. There's our very own man in the background there.
Kevin Piper, I think, isn't it? But remember, Murray, that McLaren have not won this race for over 10 years.
You're right. You're right. And Mika Häkkinen has yet to win, therefore, a British Grand Prix. There have been some great McLaren winners of the British Grand Prix in the past, but not for a very long time. They're going to have a job not to win this one at the present moment. It would mean a mechanical gremlin, I think, for Mika Häkkinen. Out go the pit boards, and even more those pit boards are needed now, and the information that they contain is difficult to get.
Try reading that at 160 miles an hour. We've got the computer back, Murray.
There's good news. Now, let me bring you right up to date, everybody. We are now on lap 15 out of 14. I know, Louise, what is it? I can tell them this afterwards.
Yes, I was just going to tell you, Murray, that of course we may have been missing our information on the timing machines. It's just come back, but the teams are covered in case that happens. Every time the car goes past the pit lane, there's a little blip of information comes back to the computers at the back of the garages. Included in that blip of information is, of course, the timing. I've been watching them very closely, the gap between Ralf Schumacher, Heinz-Harald Frentzen. It was down to 1 second, but it's just gone back up to 1.6. So I think Schumacher may have had a problem on that last lap.
I got it, Louise. Thank you very much. Lap 15 we are on now, out of 60. Mika Häkkinen is leading Eddie Irvine by 4.9 seconds and leading David Coulthard by 6.7 seconds. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is 17 seconds behind the leader and 1.6 seconds ahead of Ralf Schumacher, who is 1.3 seconds ahead of Damon Hill. You know that Rubens Barrichello is 7th with Alesi. There he is, right behind him. There is Barrichello 7th, Alesi 8th. Johnny Herbert in the background is 9th, with Pedro Diniz treading on his gearbox. Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR running well on lap 16 now, and he is in 11th position. 12th Zanardi, 13th Trulli, 14th Fisichella, 15th Ricardo Zonta in the second BAR, 16th is Alex Wurz, 17th is Panis, 18th is Takagi, 19th is Genet. That's the lot. Badeur, De La Rosa and Schumacher out.
Yes, it's lap, they're on the 16th lap now, and Coulthard's got to get on with it. He's got to get right up behind Irvine so that when they make their pit stops, I assume they're going to be lap 22, lap 23, something like that, he can try to overtake him during the first round of pit stops, assuming they're all on 2 stoppers, which I am at this time. So Coulthard and McLaren have got a job to do. At the moment, Häkkinen out front by 5.1 seconds, but he's not really scampering away at quite the pace I expected.
Now, I'll tell you what the retirement of Michael Schumacher is doing, quite apart from the obvious, and that's it helping McLaren enormously in the Constructors' Championship. They are currently 6 points behind Ferrari. I'll bring you up to date with the rest of the information when we come back from this break.
Welcome back to the British Grand Prix. We'll recap the top 6 for you. A race of high drama at the start, of course. If you just joined us, Michael Schumacher crashing out. Häkkinen and Irvine doing a great job in second. Coulthard closing in. Frentzen still there. Schumacher and Hill. Let's go back to Murray.
Stops, which can change positions in this race. Michael Schumacher out with a broken leg, hopefully one that will take very comparatively little time to mend and get it back into the fray. The restart, Mika Häkkinen again led, but Eddie Irvine magnificently leapt past second starting David Coulthard with Michael Schumacher out of the race to take second position in the race, which he still holds. Both the Jordans are running well, 4th and 6th. Frentzen and Hill sandwiching Ralf Schumacher, who got ahead of Damon Hill at the start. Ralf Schumacher 8th on the grid, and he's now 5th in the race. And there is Mika Häkkinen leading the British Grand Prix. Here is the gap to Eddie Irvine, which is just under 6 seconds. There is David Coulthard in 3rd position as we round Copse Corner, head towards Maggots. Now look at this complex of bends at Beckett's.
Yes, turn in on the first part, 190, and then just scrub some speed off, 125 through the middle for Coulthard. Then the second part, using a lot of curve there, David Coulthard, charging hard. There's a 1/10 of a second between the first 3 cars on the last lap. There really is nothing in it, but they're well over a second faster than the rest of the field, which is why that big gap's developing there that you can see.
14 seconds.
But the pace is very, very slow. We're going to wait on this just to show you how far away they are now, but the pace is very slow, Murray. The lap record here is 24.4, albeit in 97, because of course it was wet last year, and they're going around in 129s, a very slow, and considering that that's now nearly 5 seconds slower than qualifying.
Thank you, Martin. Michael Schumacher has a broken tibia he is going to be out for at least 6 weeks. And I reckon, therefore, he's going to be lucky to be back at the Hungarian Grand Prix, which happens on August the 15th, maybe Belgium. And that certainly scuppers any chances he would have had of becoming world champion and makes things that much easier for Mika Häkkinen, who's already leading the championship, to make it 2 in a row.
Yes, and you're looking at the leader now, Häkkinen, but with the driver movement in full flow at the moment, Murray, and lots of talk about Irvine maybe leaving Ferrari and etc., etc. That's going to put a big spotlight on that. I don't see them releasing him now.
No, nor do I. Not they're going to need Eddie. I felt they needed him before. Now we're getting ready for the first round of pit stops. That's the Sauber crew out. They may well have decided that since Jean Alesi has been trying manfully but unsuccessfully to get past Rubens Barrichello, who's in 7th position, for lap after lap, they might as well bring him in the hope that his pit stop will be faster than Barrichello's, which follows, and enable Alesi to rejoin the track ahead of Barrichello when the Brazilian comes out. We're on lap 20 now. We can start expecting 2-stop strategy pit stops any time now. There is Schumacher 5th, Damon Hill 6th, Barrichello coming towards us in 7th position, followed by the Sauber of Jean Alesi, who's dropping back. Johnny Herbert, I hardly dare say this because Johnny must have retired from more races than anybody else in Formula One. He's been in it for 10 years nearly now, and Johnny Herbert is going well. He's well in the top 10, and look at this battle now as they come down the Hangar Straight into Copse Corner. Denise Villeneuve Zanardi here into the pits comes Marc Genet for the first pit stop for the Minardi team, apart from Bernard, who came in and then retired. Genet is 19th and last.
Yes, they've gone through a straightforward split of 3 stints of 20 laps. They've cut the 60-lap race exactly into 3 segments. I think the main players will try to stretch it a little bit further.
Well, the British Grand Prix last year was won but in most controversial circumstances, as we rejoined Damon Hill, by Michael Schumacher, who for the first time ever in Formula One history won the race stationary in the pit lane for all sorts of complicated reasons I haven't got time to tell you about now, with Mika Häkkinen in 2nd position and Eddie Irvine in 3rd place. That was last year when it was wet and horrible. In comes Giancarlo Fisichella from 15th in the race to take his first stop.
And that chicane coming into the pit lane is terrifying because they can take it at full speed. So the 120km/h line is just after that, just before this the pit lane proper. So Benetton having an appalling weekend. Their cars really not anything like fast enough around there. I think they must be in quite a bit of shock at the moment. They're a long way up the pace. 17th and 18th on the grid they were.
Yes, and everything they tried, they practically rebuilt the car and changed all the settings last night, and it still made no difference for Fisichella, as in comes from Takagi in the arrows from 18th place. Tora Takagi, the Japanese driver, 18th when he came in. He'll be 19th now. Or he may not be, because Genet, who was with him, is out on the track now, and Mika Häkkinen. Now, what we don't know is what sort of a strategy McLaren will have had. They may well have changed it with the advent, with the fact that Michael Schumacher is out of the race. I would very much doubt it. But Mika Häkkinen has got a commanding lead now of 6 seconds, as true enough, Alesi comes in. That's exactly what I thought would happen. They brought Alesi in the hope that he can get past Barrichello.
Fuel going in there at 8.8 kilos per second, and every 10 kilos of fuel costs you 0.38 of a second around here, so that's why they're stopping. They don't want to run too heavy on the fuel, but I think some of these cars might just have enough fuel in them if they want to. If there's any kind of safety car situation, they can one stop to go to the end of the race, but it all looks straight and clear and clean to me, and I'm expecting them all to 2-stop. Certainly the Benetton team are. James, what's happening?
Yeah, Martin, I'm expecting them all to 2-stop as well, and as I was saying to you before, the classic 2-stopper would have started out with about 65 kilos of of fuel and come in around about now. That's what Williams are doing. I can see they're ready, and obviously Benetton as well. But another way of looking at it, you and I talked about this on the grid, was the changeover strategy, which is where you put a bit more fuel in the car and give yourself the option of going 1 or 2, run about 25, 26 laps into the race. And I think that's what McLaren are doing. I think they kept their options open. Ferrari always keep their options open. So we could see them coming in around 24, 25. Watch how much fuel they put in, though. If he's stationary for around 7 seconds, it is a 2-stopper. Anyone that's going to change their strategy will be stationary for at least 10.
Thank you, James. Well, you saw the top 3 together. You're watching Eddie Irvine now as round Chapel comes the silver McLaren of David Coulthard. And the gaps between the leaders, respectively, now are Irvine, that you're looking at, is 6.2 seconds behind Häkkinen, and he's 3 seconds ahead of David Coulthard.
Well, the driver of the race for me is this man here, Ralf Schumacher, so far. Everybody else is doing about what they should be doing. Coulthard's not having a sparkling one down there in 3rd place, but the first 3 are all on a good pace. But it's Ralf that's really got his car up into position that is ahead of where it possibly should be. But Zanardi in from 14th place. Well, poor old Alessandro is still not falling in. It's halfway through his season, but it's not falling into place. It was a good stop.
Yeah, now, interestingly, the stops we've had so far were 8.8 seconds for Fisichella, 8.3 for Alesi, 8.4 for Wurz, 7.2 for Zanardi. Very good pit stop work by the Williams team, which bodes well for Ralf Schumacher's chances. Look how close he is now.
And hello and welcome back. Well, obviously we've had a satellite glitch from Silverstone. We'll return you there as soon as we can, as soon as pictures are restored. There they are there. So not too much to worry about. We'll take you back to Murray Walker.
And here is Louise is down there.
Damon's coming into the pit lane. He's just about stopped perfectly on his mark. As the tyres go on the car, you'll see some mechanics at the front of the car as well. They're making some adjustments to the front wing. They're taking a little bit of wing off. Damon's been complaining of understeer. Same for Frentzen. That hasn't delayed them at all. He's back out again.
He didn't lose any time, he didn't gain any time. 8.5 seconds. Not as good as Zanardi, but just as good as the rest.
Brilliant getaway there from Damon. Now, he really had it up on the cam and ready to go. But, you know, if Damon is making his mind up after his performance today, so far, Murray, I think he'd be pretty pleased with himself.
I should think he'd be absolutely delighted with himself. He started 6th, he was in the hunt all the time through the practice and qualifying sessions. And what's far more important, it's a different Damon altogether here at Silverstone than it was at Magny-Cours. There he was downcast and miserable and depressed. Here he's been up all the time. Cheerful, chipper, the old Damon Hill, and fighting hard.
Yeah, crucial laps here. He was only 2.6 seconds behind Frentzen when he went in, and that's Coulthard in the pit lane. So unusual. Normally they bring in Häkkinen first, or normally they bring in whichever McLaren is in the lead first. But Coulthard coming in, so and getting away 7.6. That's a good stop, Murray. 7.6. He's got to do something about Eddie Irvine.
And so here comes Frentzen into the pits as well. It's all happening. Frentzen followed by Schumacher.
Straightforward team race here. Schumi locking up his right front wheel. No harm done there. Would have scared his mechanics a little bit. It's a pure team race. Who can get their car away first? And yes,
it's done it. Frentzen.
No, that's Ralf.
Sorry, Ralf. Yes, there's Ralf getting away. There is Frentzen. So Ralf Schumacher is there out on the track ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Now, good stop there from the Williams boys, and I don't know whether there was a fumble on the back of the Jordan or whatever happened, but Frentzen, the end of the pit stop, seemed to take way too long.
In they come now. In comes Jarno Trulli in the first Prost. He's in 12th position. Just watch him carefully. That's a good stop too. That's the best one we've had so far.
Now, which of those Jordans is in front? Is that Hill in front of Frentzen? I can't see from this distance.
It's difficult to tell, but meantime, here's Mika Häkkinen.
That's your leader.
Here is race leader, and he comes in now. Eddie Irvine is leading the British Grand Prix. Don't let that fool you, because they've got a problem on the right front, left rear. Sorry, 9 9.2 seconds. Well, he's got plenty of time in hand, but nevertheless, he's lost us. Let's hope they've got that nut on strongly.
No, he's wiggling the car around, just feeling, somebody's told him, just feel, is that okay? Just feeling the car as he went down there, putting it side to side, see if he could feel any movement. Poor stop there for Häkkinen.
It wouldn't be the first time that a lost wheel nut has cost somebody the race. It cost Nigel Mansell the Hungarian Grand Prix one year when we had a dramatic shot of the nut flying off the wheel and then the wheel itself.
Enjoy this lap, Eddie. Eddie Irvine leading the British Grand Prix. Nice to see.
And the order now, at the moment, with Häkkinen having made his stop, is that Eddie Irvine is the race leader, and here he is, the man who won the Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne, and Häkkinen is coming in again. We believe that Häkkinen is coming in again.
Yes, he's not going very fast.
And
he's not at full speed.
Irvine holds this lead.
And Coulthard is now in front of Häkkinen, look, but Coulthard tucked up behind two back markers at a crucial time when he really needs a clear track to be able to get ahead of Eddie Irvine. Crucial lap this for how this race is going to pan out.
So we're on lap 26 now, and we wait for them to come past as David Coulthard tries to thread his way through the field. Well, he was held up there, and here is Irvine into the pit lane. James Allen.
Yes, Eddie Irvine, another chance to win yet another Grand Prix because Mika Häkkinen is definitely in trouble. They've got another set of tyres behind me ready for his car, and Eddie Irvine won't have a better chance than this. 7.6. I think this might be a change of strategy for Ross Brawn. Yes, they've changed the strategy. He's on a one-stopper. Watch this.
Yeah,
but hang on.
Thank you, James. That took 12 full seconds, so a lot of extra fuel went in there.
It may be, but here's Häkkinen coming slowly into the pit line. Be careful, because Irvine made a pig's ear coming into the pit garage, skidded past, and I think everybody had to shuffle along a little bit. Don't be too sure of that. But meanwhile, previous race leader Häkkinen back into the pit line. James, what's happening?
Yes, the tyres go back on the Häkkinen. Changing what I was just saying. Nigel Stepney, chief mechanic at Ferrari, is shaking his head. That was a mistake, as you said. It wasn't an extra fuel load. It was a problem with the fuel meter. Still problems at the back for Häkkinen. You can see them better than I can.
It's dropped the car.
It's costing him. They've taken the wheel off. The seconds are ticking away. Does this mean to say that McLaren are still not going to win a British Grand Prix? They're in real trouble with this hub here. Well, they've got him away now. That's 27.6 seconds added to 9.2. So, and he wiggles the car there again to
They're
make
still
sure
not sure, are they?
As well.
And it costs 25 seconds to call into the pits, plus any work done. And Coulthard is in front of Irvine. So Coulthard now leads the race.
Well, David Coulthard in the McLaren, and he has made his pit stop. Eddie Irvine has made his pit stop. What a fantastic development. Mika Häkkinen in trouble. Ralf Schumacher is now in fourth position, but may well be moving up. We've got to wait for the confirmation of this as David Coulthard crosses the line as race leader, followed by Eddie Irvine. You can see the gap between for yourselves. This is lap 28 out of 60.
This is where Coulthard is at his best. He always says, I love leading a race. I feel in control. He prefers to lead than chase. So now Coulthard's got his chance to win the British Grand Prix and try to haul some points back into this championship, but we're not even at half distance yet.
No, and David Coulthard richly deserves a victory, heaven knows, as the McLaren mechanics look at the wheel and the hub which caused the problem. But anyway, you can see now the developing battle, and what a battle it's going to be, because Eddie Irvine knows he can win this race if he hangs in there. He won in Australia, he knows he can win. Maybe he's in the closing races of his career, his superb career with Ferrari, and how fabulous it would be if he went out with a win. But the same thing applies to David Coulthard. 4 victories behind him for Williams and McLaren, and this is the thing that he desperately needs to restore his self-confidence to the full. He's had problem after problem this year, mainly with unreliable McLarens, but it hasn't put him down. He's just hung on there, and it looks as though he may be getting his reward. But we still have a long way to go.
The nip and tuck, he's not pulling away from Irvine, but no excuses for waving the Union Jack, and the crowd out here are certainly waving the Union Jacks, because we have 2 British drivers at the front of this Grand Prix. 3 British drivers in the top 5, and here's
Here's Irvine out of the pits. Now let's see how Coulthard took the lead. Eddie Irvine coming out of his pit stop. He's got to stay to the left of the yellow line, and there goes Coulthard. And Coulthard chopped across the front of him on the racing line and took the lead in the British Grand Prix. And yes, the Union Jacks are waving, but if there's any Saltires here, they'll be waving, because it's the Saltire that David Coulthard proudly carries on his helmet.
And something else that makes me think Irvine's car is not full of fuel, ready to go completely to the end of the race, is that Coulthard is not getting away at this time. So I still, if you look back on the, maybe we'll get a replay of the Eddie Irvine pit stop, you'll see as he comes in, he locks his wheels and skids to the right corner of his box, and everybody had to shuffle along.
Well, now here is another piece of sensational information for you. Third in the British Grand Prix is Ralf Schumacher in the Williams. We saw him get ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and he is now in 4th position. Damon Hill is in 5th position with Barrichello 6th, Villeneuve 7th, Alesi 8th, Johnny Herbert still in that 9th position. 10th place is Pedro Diniz, and Mika Hakkinen is still in the race, of course. He's in 11th position. We're looking at him now. He's not only still in the race, but he's the fastest man on the track. 1 minute 28.3, and that compares with last year's fastest lap of Michael Schumacher, in the wet, of course, 1:35, and the lap record, Michael Schumacher in 1997, 1 minute 24.4. Mika Hakkinen is on his way. He's 12 seconds behind Pedro Diniz, but his minimum target will be to get into the top 6 and score at least 1 World Championship point. Coulthard leads, Irvine is second. Look at the black track behind them. The gap is 21 seconds behind Eddie Irvine to the 3rd place man, Ralf Schumacher. And the Horde, now there are the two Jordans together. The front one is Heinz-Harald Frentzen. There he is, the winner in France.
Oh, Damon Hill well out of shape. Sorry, Murray, to cut across you. Damon Hill, oh, there's a wheel off. Is that a McLaren? That's Hakkinen, lost his left rear. Car's going round it. Hakkinen's left rear off.
Safety car.
I wonder if that'll be safety car.
Safety car will have to come out to allow them to retrieve that wheel.
They won't get that car running again, I don't think, not safely. But
at least they have.
Brave man.
Wow. There's going to be a post-mortem over this with the suppliers and McLaren as Mika Hakkinen comes in to finish his British Grand Prix, surely. Are they going to put a wheel on and give him another go?
They'll have to look at the floor. If the floor's okay, then they will be able to carry on.
But we didn't see any sparks come up, as we have so very often in the past. But this is doing no good for Mika Hakkinen at all. But at the present moment, the McLaren failure to win a British Grand Prix may, for 10 years, maybe. They seem to be happy with it this time. That's another 24 seconds down the line, though. We're going to have a... Let's see if we can see, as Mika Hakkinen goes out, what happens. He turns into the corner. You can see the car jink. He's obviously feeling it loose at the back, and hardly surprising, because off rolls the left rear wheel over the gravel track.
Yes, the wheel makes it back onto the racetrack eventually, as we all know. So it's amazing the amount of energy, isn't it?
Just shows how much energy they contain.
It couldn't have happened at a better time, just as the pit lane entry's coming up. So Hakkinen skidding down. Now that's Hakkinen back on track again, isn't it? But he must now be a lap down on that on the Jordan that he's following.
He's now a lap behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who is in 4th position and has got ahead of Damon Hill.
Villeneuve, sorry to interrupt, Murray. Villeneuve in front of us, having stopped. Safety car is out. The safety car is out.
And that's the reason. Jacques Villeneuve is not going to finish a Grand Prix again for the BAR team, which won't improve his humour. He's a shareholder. This is the 8th race he started for BAR, and the 8th race he has failed to finish. Now, no one should underestimate how difficult it is to get going with a new team in Formula One.
Murray, now will they bring the cars in? If this was IndyStar racing, for sure they'd treat this as a yellow. Bring the cars in for a pit stop. So I wonder, we can see the Ferrari team getting ready. This might be a chance to bring the cars in, fuel them up to the end of the race. Will McLaren react in the same way as Ferrari?
Well, they are no less experienced. There's Ferrari, obviously expecting Eddie Irvine in.
The problem is that that will then runs in on there trying to make a decision. Problem is you'll lose track position. If not enough cars come in, you end up at the back of the snake, and although you can run to the end, you find yourself losing too much time coming through the back markers.
Jack, that's Norbert Haug, the boss of Mercedes-Benz competition department. You saw Jacques Villeneuve not looking exactly overjoyed with the fact that for the 8th time in 8 races he has retired. And here is Villeneuve. It looks like the Supertech engine has said it's had enough for the day, but 30 laps of Silverstone is as much as it's prepared to accommodate on July the 11th, 1999. There's his car being pushed out of the way. Lap 32 we are on now, therefore there's 28 to go. David Coulthard is leading Irvine. There's the safety car. Now let's read down. There, the silver car ahead of the red one is Coulthard ahead of Irvine. Then is Ralf Schumacher. Behind him is going to be Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
McLaren mechanics in the pit lane, as are Ferrari. Ferrari moving out of the pit lane now. There's some kind of mind games. There's some kind of mind games going on. Look, that's the Williams. No, that's the Ferrari team. They've suddenly. James, what's happening down there?
Well, Ross Brawn got the Ferrari mechanics out ready, and obviously we were talking about changing to a one-stop strategy. They had the problem I mentioned to you before with the fuel hose on Irvine's first stop. Made me think he changed the strategy to a one-stopper because he was so long there. Go back to you, Martin.
James, sorry the lights are out, so they're going to restart straight away. That's why they've changed that plan. So that saves anybody making a bad decision there, because the lights are out on the safety car. This is a restart. Look at Irvine creeping around the outside of Coulthard. Coulthard's got to back him up and then floor it and make sure he gets the run into the first corner. Exactly what he's done. Irvine won't get at him from there.
So Coulthard leads, Irvine second. That's Takagi, but he is down now. Let's look for the yellow car. It's bad for Ralf Schumacher because he's in amongst tail-enders traffic. And it's bad also for Frentzen for the same reason. Now there is Frentzen, and behind him is Damon Hill. Damon Hill still in that 5th position, but this is giving Coulthard there and Irvine the opportunity to break away with a clear track in front of them.
Yes, Irvine a bit less cautious into Beckers, and that's put him up behind
and
Coulthard.
Look at Hakkinen on the right.
Yes.
Hakkinen trying to get past the yellow Jordan as they go into, but Coulthard is Hakkinen gives a wave of the hand as Frentzen lets him by to say thank you.
And Barrichello coming up the inside of Hill. Barrichello for position. Damon Hill slipping back. That's yes, Barrichello taking 5th, Hill 6th. And Hakkinen passing Frentzen, but not for position, of course. He's 1 lap behind, having had those problems with the loose wheel. So, again, Irvine appears to have a little bit more grip on this first lap, but nowhere near close enough to have a stab at Coulthard.
Fantastic scrap at the front. What people are now regarding as the number 2 drivers of both teams, although they are no doubt about David Coulthard. He's supposed to be on the same level as Hakkinen, but nevertheless, it's Coulthard leading, Irvine right behind him.
Yeah, Irvine making a mistake at Priory there and losing out quite badly. So went in a little bit deep, a little bit heavy. Coulthard choosing to build his speed up. Irvine trying to worry him into a mistake. Good driving from the pair of them. And Ralf, as we said through the programme, doing a sterling job there in 3rd place.
Look at the way Hakkinen is scything through the field now, but he's still a full lap behind.
I wonder if they'll park Hakkinen in front of Irvine and bother Irvine if they get half a chance to make sure Coulthard can stay out front.
First he's got to catch him, then he's got to get past him. There's just 1 car now between Eddie Irvine and Mika Hakkinen, as in comes Jean Alesi for another pit stop. We're on lap 34. There are the race leaders. I would be hard put to decide who I was going to put my money on as we rejoin Damon Hill scything through on the inside in the Jordan. That's Heinz-Harald Frentzen ahead of him. So now Rubens Barrichello is 5th, and the race order is Coulthard, Irvine, Ralf Schumacher, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Barrichello is 5th, Hill is 6th. Johnny Herbert has taken advantage of things and is in 7th position ahead of Deniz, Fisichella and Zanardi. And we still have 18 out of the 21 starters left.
Yes, this traffic's working badly for Damon Hill. He's lost that place to Barrichello, and now he's got Johnny Herbert climbing all over the back of him too. So Herbert coming on strong in the second half of this Grand Prix. Back on board again with Damon Hill in Brooklands corner, short squirt of the throttle into Luffield. And look, the two leaders are coming past us now, Murray. The grandstands are cheering and waving. You're on board with Damon. He's now coming past those same grandstands, currently in 6th position for 1 point.
Yeah, but interestingly, Mika Häkkinen, who is behind Ralf Schumacher, has not been able to get past him. There they are in the background as we watch the race leaders, Coulthard, Irvine. The next two up you see in the background, there they are Schumacher and Häkkinen. Schumacher, Ralf, who is in 3rd position. Now, let's look at this. There go the leaders now. There is Ralf Schumacher 3rd, Mika Häkkinen in 16th, but a lap down. He's trying to get on the same lap as the leaders. There is Frentzen 4th, Barrichello 5th, Damon Hill is in 6th position, Johnny Herbert is 7th. Behind Johnny Herbert is Deniz, and then there's a whole pack of cars. Remember, they were all together when the safety car came in, and they have still not spread out. Häkkinen, Irvine.
Coulthard leading. It's Coulthard in front of Irvine, and there's really nothing between them. Both 1 minute 29.2 on that last lap. So, and there's Alesi. We saw him. I know you were looking for him when you were doing the countdown, Murray, count through there, but he's obviously had a technical problem somewhere along the line. Yeah,
Alesi in trouble again. He's down in 15th position. Well, David Coulthard, as Martin says, is where he wants to be, leading a race again, extremely determined. And Louise has got Jacques Villeneuve with her. What's the news, Louise?
I have indeed, Murray. Well, let's ask the man himself. Jacques, a bit of a dodgy place to stop. Any idea what the problem was?
Something broke on the car, drive shaft, the transmission, I'm not sure.
Are you getting a bit frustrated with all these retirements?
Yeah, definitely. And when the car seemed like it was going to finish the race, then I went off. So it's not been a very good first half of the season. Somehow the car was very difficult to drive now. There was a lot of oversteering, but our strategy was looking to be good because we were only on one stop and the safety car came out just after our pit stop. So we were looking very good for the end of the race.
Bad luck, Jack.
What happened to you right at this point?
Well, Ralf Schumacher is determined not to let Mika Häkkinen past. He may not even realise, of course, that the Finn is not yet on the same lap as he is.
The team should, if they haven't, they very much should have radioed him to say, you're not fighting that man behind you, you're not racing him, don't trip over him, because if Ralf gets too defensive, assuming his radio's working properly, they should have spoken to him. See, Ralph's locking wheels and all that, having a good fight with Häkkinen, doesn't need to do so.
So David Coulthard leads into Priory and Brooklands as he comes through to complete his 36th lap out of 60, with Eddie Irvine following closely in his wheel tracks. The gap in terms of time is about 0.3 of a second, I would think. You can see how close it is on the track. And they are now 3 seconds ahead of Ralf Schumacher, who is fighting to stay ahead of Mika Häkkinen down in 16th position. Häkkinen again, in comes Häkkinen again into the pits. This is the 3rd time he's clearly totally unhappy with the car and retires into the garage. No World Championship points for Schumacher, no World Championship points for Häkkinen. So that is going to delay things as far as Häkkinen is concerned, with the gap decreasing between him and Michael Schumacher. He's going to have races, of course, as that Schumacher recovers in hospital. But a sad Mika Häkkinen gets out of the car to retire for the 3rd time in 8 races this year, and talks to Ron Dennis, the McLaren boss, about what is happening. So now we know that both McLarens are not going to finish this race. They are not going to get World Championships for both of them any more than Ferrari are, with Schumacher out.
Yes, Coulthard's still very much around, but I suspect Ron is saying, look, we can't be sure that the same thing can't happen again in a more critical part of the racetrack. We have decided to pull the car. A bit of blue smoke coming out of the back of Coulthard's car there. Pretty certain it was a long front wheel, but Irvine absolutely relentless in his pursuit there of leader Coulthard. They're looking at the back of the car. They may have been able to see something on telemetry that suggests that the push rod loads in the left rear corner were not as they should be, and that there was something going wrong.
Well, meantime, you can see for yourselves that Eddie Irvine is not allowing David Coulthard to relax for one turn of the wheel. This race is vital to both of them. They both know they could win it. David Coulthard has not won a race this year. Eddie Irvine has. Coulthard would love to make it one. Irvine would love to make it two, and they are now 4 seconds ahead of Ralf Schumacher, who is driving a quite superlative race.
Well, Irvine's much faster through Beckett's than Coulthard, so if he can get near enough, he's got a chance of going down in the slipstream down Hanger Straight. That's where Irvine is strongest. The rest of the lap, it's nip and tuck, with Coulthard probably having a little bit more traction on the slow corners.
So if Eddie Irvine could get ahead of David Coulthard, and that's not going to be easy, heaven knows, because David Coulthard can choose his line to make things very difficult indeed for Eddie Irvine. Both very experienced drivers. This is Coulthard's 82nd Grand Prix. It is Eddie Irvine's 89th Grand Prix. Look how close it is between them. Ralf Schumacher is still third. Frentzen is still fourth. Barrichello is still fifth. Damon Hill, yes, is still in the points, on target for one World Championship point, but Rubens Barrichello is harassing Frentzen and putting away from Damon Hill. 7th is Herbert, 8th is Deniz, 9th is Fisichella, 10th is Zanardi.
Well, he had a clear demonstration of Coulthard pulling away from Irvine in left field, the traction area of left field. Now watch Beckett's. Watch Irvine just screaming in. He's definitely able to carry more speed through there and close that gap back down to David. But in fact, he's a little bit further back this time than the lap before. But he's definitely able to make in there. And if he can get close enough, he might just get a snip of a slipstream.
Mika Häkkinen talking to his wife, Aya. Early bath for him. And back to Monaco, where they live, as David Coulthard goes into the Vale, brakes hard for the left-hander and approaching Club, the right-hander, and out of the pit lane goes Olivier Panis in the Frost. He's in 12th position now. And now we turn up to Abbey, climbing out of Club corner, the left, right at Abbey. Coulthard, Irvine into Bridge. No, Eddie Irvine is not closing at the present moment. We still don't know what the strategies are. We still don't know for sure whether that long pit stop of Eddie Irvine's was because he overran or because he took on extra fuel, or maybe a bit of both. So the strategy of the McLaren and the Ferrari teams for Coulthard and Irvine are going to decide the result of the British Grand Prix, provided both cars finish, of course.
Yes, the fact that Ferrari looked like they were getting ready to bring Eddie Irvine in again under that safety car situation does still suggest he has got to make one more pit stop.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I'm trying to understand how much time he lost in that pit stop by coming in and locking his front wheels and skidding to the right, far right corner of his pit.
He took 11 seconds in comparison with most of them who were taking about 8.5. So he lost 2.5 seconds, and I would think, frankly, Martin, that you're right, that it was more because he overshot than because they might have put extra fuel in. Back with Damon, and look, you see, you can see ahead, you can't see Barrichello, and you can't see Frentzen, as Zanardi comes into the pits in the Williams. He's touring in.
He's just on his way out, actually. I think he's probably finished his stop there. We didn't see his stop, but he had just finished his stop and he was on his way out, rejoining at Copse.
So Alex Zanardi was in 11th place. I think he would have kept it because Trulli was 16 seconds behind him. Now, Damon seeing, here, this is the battle. There is the Stewart, and there is Johnny Herbert. Now, Johnny Herbert in 7th position is 1.3 seconds behind Damon Hill, and he's catching the Englishman in his last British Grand Prix. There it is. Now, there is the yellow Jordan of Damon Hill. Behind him, the white Stewart of Johnny Herbert, who is another man who desperately needs a good finish. Stewart has had problem after problem. Herbert has had problem after problem with the Stewart this year. He's retired 5 times. We look down now at Ralf Schumacher in from 3rd position for his 2nd pit stop. Now, he will have undoubtedly lost that 3rd position as in comes the Stewart. and out goes the wheel.
It's Herbert in for a stop, so we're now, again, lap 40, you see, 41, it is there. It's the sensible time to split the race up in many ways. So Herbert in with an 8.8 second stop. Not sensational, but not bad. That's the lead two.
Two-thirds race distance completed. They're on lap 41, 60-lap race. Coulthard and Irvine have stopped once. They've got to come in again, that is for sure. They didn't stop long enough to take on enough fuel to go through for the rest of the race. And David Coulthard leads into bridge from Irvine. As coming towards us are Frentzen and Rubens Barrichello, respectively 4th and 5th. And Barrichello driving magnificently. He's got 2/3 places behind him already this year. He's closing down the gap on Frentzen, but as ever, catching is one thing and getting past is quite another.
Murray, while you're explaining that, I can see the Ferrari mechanics out in the pit lane, and there he is in the pit lane.
Eddie Irvine into the pits for his second stop. Now, the time for this is going to make the difference in this race. Locks up a bit. No. They're very well drilled indeed. James?
Yes, it was very neat. He came in very quickly. Michael Schumacher practices it all the time, coming into the pit lane and hitting that line where you hit the speed limiter. Irvine was bang on. Great stop.
Yes, I watched Eddie Irvine practicing that last week. It was terrifying, the speed he was taking into that pit lane. And that was a great stop. That might just give him track position over David Coulthard.
That won't help him very much that Deniz, or is it Alesi?
Alesi's rejoined, actually, if you're wondering what he's doing back on the track. He's a lap down, but he has rejoined. I think you'll find he'll move over and let that Ferrari through going into Stowe.
He's certainly fighting the car every inch of the way. It's Alesi. And Eddie Irvine jinks out from behind him and, yes, takes the track position. Eddie Irvine then a 7.1 second stop. So it's going to be critical how long it takes David Coulthard. And here he is.
Meanwhile, Coulthard does his fastest lap of the race. So Coulthard knows these are the crucial laps. I can't see too much track in front of him, but there's not a lot of traffic, certainly, for a couple more laps. So there's the mechanics ready. Will Coulthard duck in this very lap?
Well, seeing Coulthard come out of... Yes. They're sensibly bringing in the very next lap. He's done a very quick one in order to try to increase the gap. Now, remember, Irvine was 7.1 seconds. It's going to be mighty, mighty close. I'm looking down the track as you look at David Coulthard. Oh, what a cracking stop. 6.3 seconds. He ought to rejoin in front of it. Here's Irvine. I can see Irvine exiting Woodcote. It's going to be mighty, mighty. There's Irvine. Now look.
Coulthard should stay in front of that. He did a fast in lap, and then he had a better pit stop, Murray.
So David Coulthard has retained the lead. It's a status quo, is exactly what it was before, and out of the race goes the second BAR. Oh, it's a bad day for Brackley, which is where their headquarters is. Ricardo Zonta retires, and it means that BAR have still only had one Grand Prix finish, and that was given to them by Mika Salo when he was replacing Ricardo Zonta. Meantime, Eddie Irvine cramming on the power.
Irvine's best shot now. Irvine's a lap into his run. Coulthard on fresh tyres, got to bring everything back up to temperature. If Irvine's going to make a move, it's got to be this lap, or he'll have to wait for some back markers later on. But this is his best chance, but Coulthard making a good job of this outlap.
Indeed he is. David Coulthard, Eddie Irvine. Damon Hill is still in there, of course. He was momentarily up into third position when Coulthard and Irvine were making their pit stops. That's not the situation anymore. And you can see what the lead battle is as they exit the last corner. And here coming towards us is Heinz-Harald Frentzen, followed by Damon Hill. And we're now on lap 44 out of 60.
So Hill is actually currently second place, of course, Murray, because of the pit stop. So
and Frentzen is leading. Heinz-Harald Frentzen leads the British Grand Prix. Damon Hill is in second place. But as I've said before, it's a bit of a false dawn because they've both got to come in. And there is the battle for the lead behind them, with Louise Goodman about to talk to Mika Hakkinen.
I am indeed. Mika, what was going on there? You're in and out of the pits, finally retirement. What was the problem?
You know, the race was going really well until, like you all saw on television, my real whip came off. I thought first that the nut is not properly fixed in a car. So I thought, wow, you know, this is unusual for McLaren to have a problem like that. It never happened to me. So finally, when the team did stop me and asked me to drive in the garage, for safety reasons, they understood there is something else in the car. It was not. This is not the full statement. I'm sure you will hear the latest, but looks like it was nobody's mistake. It was just some kind of problem with the car, which sometimes happens.
Nasty moment when that red tire came off.
Luckily it was low speed corner, so I was not too scared.
Now here's an interesting one. Remember, Frentzen was able to win the French Grand Prix by one stopping, by having he clearly had a bigger fuel tank on that Jordan than anybody else. At the moment, you've got a Jordan 1-2. They both only one stop. I wonder how far they can go on the fuel they've got on board. I don't see any Jordan mechanics in the pit lane at all at the moment.
Well, meantime, you can see the first four in the same shot, because there is Frentzen leading. Damon Hill up to second place. David Coulthard, who has two-stopped, is third. Eddie Irvine, who is two-stopped, is fourth.
Just prior to the break, Murray was wondering about when the Jordans were coming in. Well, Frentzen in now, and of course, AJ, that puts Damon Hill leading the British Grand Prix.
Good stop too, Daz. Look at that 6.8 seconds. Excellent stop. No, the crowd are going berserk. Here comes Hill now, so let's see if they can do the same for him.
So both Jordans in, and we'll go back to Murray.
Second position. And the next question is, I'm just trying to remember what the gap was between Frentzen and Hill, because can Damon Hill get into third position? No, Frentzen has gone through. Damon Hill is going to rejoin where he was before in fourth position behind his teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Going to be very close when he got down there, actually. Yeah. Remember, the Jordan pit's further along, and I bet there's not much in it, so Hill very much able to. Of course, we've had lots of safety car situations which has closed the field up, but Hill has kept Frentzen in sight all day, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that shakes out. I think you're probably right, Murray. I think Frentzen would be in front, and there he is.
Interesting to see how team orders go, because if Damon's got a chance of finishing on the podium, he may well grasp it.
Yeah, shame for Damon. It didn't quite leapfrog him in front of Barrichello. So Hill now having a drop back behind Frentzen and Barrichello, which is pretty much where he was before these pit stops all started.
So, deep breath again, lap 47. You're watching Heinz-Harald Frentzen third, Barrichello fourth, Damon Hill in fifth position. The race leader is David Coulthard, just ahead, 2.6 seconds, looking comfortable actually.
Look.
And David goes through and takes Barrichello. Wow!
Barrichello's broken down.
Barrichello's let go, the car's in trouble, but Damon Hill is now in fourth in... I've just lost track of where Ralf Schumacher is at the present moment, but that's rotten luck for Rubens Barrichello. He was going as he has done so well in the past, and it looks as though that's going to be his fourth retirement. Meantime, we're on lap 48, and yes, this is the battle I was trying to lead up to. Ralf Schumacher, as Barrichello comes into the pits, is in third position. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is behind him.
Something sparking underneath the car, Murray, with Barrichello. Something, we saw a trail of sparks coming off, look. He's got a puncture, actually, I think is his problem. I think what's happening is the rubbing strips are running along the ground. As soon as he touched the brakes, a completely unloaded right front. So it would have been a left rear puncture for Barrichello, and that's why you see him rejoining.
So that's good news. At least he is not out of the race. He's lost track position, of course, with very little chance of regaining it. Lost a lot of time coming into the pits, lost more time in the pits, because that was Rubens Barrichello's third stop. Now, lap 48, race leader, Coulthard. There he is. You saw in the background Eddie Irvine. Now, if this position continues, it's going to mean that in terms of the World Championship, McLaren are going to get 10 points to make them 62, and Ferrari are going to get 6 points to make them 64. that Ferrari would still be leading the Constructors' World Championship, but by a further decreased gap, because McLaren closed the gap in France. It looks as though they're closing it again, but they've still got to finish. Lap 49, Coulthard leads, Irvine second, Schumacher third, Frentzen fourth, Hill is fifth, Johnny Herbert is up into sixth position, and we're taking a break.
Well, we'll stay with the coverage while ITV take the break. Damon Hill, pretty emotional roller coaster ride for him, AJ.
Oh, too right. He's going really well. I mean, you can see the crowd's right behind him. And there we go after 46 laps. Coulthard from Irvine, Schumacher, Frentzen, Damon Hill and Barrichello.
Been an amazing race, this one, when you consider what has happened right throughout. The pit stops have been so critical right throughout the season, and again having a bearing on this race.
Well, I mean, if nothing else, they have actually made the races a bit more exciting, as if they wouldn't have existed, that's for sure. Johnny Herbert's got a 10-second penalty. Well, he certainly doesn't deserve that.
All right, let's go back to Murray Walker.
It's overtaking under the safety car.
Taken a long time to work that one out, but there you go. We had enough problems last year with that sort of thing. But now Schumacher and Heinz-Harald Frentzen are well and truly at it, and Ralf Schumacher is underlining his already very considerable image in Formula One racing, because he's had a terrific season since he joined Williams after having left Jordan. Frentzen and Schumacher changed places. Frentzen left Jordan and Frentzen left Williams and Schumacher left Jordan, and they've both benefited. They've both done better. Frentzen couldn't get on with the atmosphere at Williams, and Schumacher has thrived there. Frentzen loves it at Jordan, and Schumacher loves it at Williams, as Johnny Herbert comes into the pit lane to take that 10-second penalty for passing behind the safety car. I would imagine, knowing Johnny, that that was totally inadvertent. He's not the sort of bloke that's going to take advantage of the situation deliberately.
I suspect what he did was overtake before the official timing line, Murray. I'd imagine where he went wrong on that. Too early off the marks.
Out goes Johnny now. How badly has that affected his position? Well, he was 1.6 seconds ahead of Johnny Herbert. It will have dropped him down to, I estimate, about 11th place. Lap 50, 10 to go, and you're watching the battle between Ralf Schumacher and Heinz-Harald Frentzen for fourth position. Johnny Herbert has been given a 10-second penalty for passing when the safety car was out, which I'm sure he did inadvertently. He's been in and he's taken that penalty, but it's dropped him out of the points, and Pedro Diniz is there in the Sauber. The order now on lap 51 out of 60. David Coulthard leads Eddie Irvine by a comfortable 3.5 seconds, looking very good indeed for his first Grand Prix win for a long time, to break McLaren's British Grand Prix drought of victories. Eddie Irvine second, Ralf Schumacher third. Right behind him is Frentzen, and there is the German. Damon Hill is still in the points. There he is in the background, and he's catching both the cars ahead of him. Fifth position. Pedro Diniz is sixth. Damon Hill is going for it. We're with him now. He's cutting the gap between himself, Frentzen and Schumacher, who are fourth and third.
Yes, I think Schumacher's struggling a little bit on this section of the race, and Frentzen's caught him, can't do much about him, and that's allowing Damon Hill to catch at about a half a second per lap. So there's going to be a good squabble. Damon Hill anytime soon. Well, he can now look. He can see a podium position just up the road in front of him at the 99 British Grand Prix. Meanwhile, Coulthard up front, as you're still on board with Hill, coming into bridge. Coulthard up front is eking out about 0.3 of a second per lap on Eddie Irvine. The lead up to 3.5. There is Coulthard now. Seems to be on his way.
Well, fingers crossed for the man from Twynham in Scotland, David Coulthard. He richly deserves this victory, as I said earlier on. He hasn't got it yet, of course, after all the misfortunes that he has had this year. He was beginning to be thought of as number 2 to Mika Häkkinen. when he's not. I've always said that in my head, David Coulthard is just as good a driver as Mika Häkkinen if he gets the brakes and he gets reliable machinery. He hasn't had that this year. He's got it here. He looks as though he's going to win the British Grand Prix.
A bit too early to say that because his car's let him down a bit, as you've said before. Remember, Häkkinen nearly won this race a few years ago and his car let him down 6 laps before the end. There's a long, long way to go yet, but Coulthard appears to have the pace, at least, to win the motor race.
Frentzen has got the pace to stay with, but not get past Ralf Schumacher. Damon Hill has got the pace to catch both of them. There's Schumacher third on the right, Frentzen fourth on the left, and Schumacher exits the corner. Look for Damon Hill. You just saw a flash of him in the background. There he is. They're being delayed by Alesi. Now, this is going to give Damon Hill the opportunity to catch his teammate and Ralf Schumacher. We're going to see a fantastic battle for the last step on the podium. In fact, we are looking at it as they go into Priory, into Brooklands, down to Luffield, round the right-hander, up to Woodcote, and Alesi, if he doesn't get out of the way, is going to make it very difficult for them.
Yes, Herbert's stop-go penalty dropped him back to 13th place. What a shame. He was in 6th, all 4 Brits in the points, but Herbert, well, his luck just keeps deserting him as ever. Frentzen bearing down on Ralf Schumacher. Alesi, I wouldn't say he's holding them up yet, but he will be any time soon.
Well, let's just have a look at the lap times. Alesi's lapping at about 1:31, and they are lapping in 1:30 in round figures. They could lap a second a lap faster than him if they could get past him, which they can't at the present moment. Takagi has just been passed by Coulthard and Irvine. Now look ahead from Damon Hill's point of view, and those 2 spots you can see in front of him as Alesi gives way and lets Schumacher and Frentzen through are the cars that Damon is targeting.
Yes, I hope Damon doesn't pick up the tail end of Alesi going slowly into Stowe. I think Alesi hopefully will just, as soon as he gets out of club, move out of the way, which is right as it happens, move to the right of the track and let Damon scorch around the outside and keep this little battle very much intact. Yes, he has done.
Well done, Jean. Up to Abbey, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Williams, Jordan. Yes, we're on lap 53. Coulthard is still leading. Irvine is still second. Irvine has taken a bit of time out of David Coulthard on that lap. Very little, but just a 10th or so.
Yes, they both had to pass the arrows, Murray. So I don't know which arrows it was, but they both had to pass it. So I think it looks like, yes, Irvine getting the better of that.
Very quickly, retirements again. Michael Schumacher out, of course, broken leg. De La Rosa out, Badoer out, Villeneuve out, Mika Häkkinen out, Ricardo Zonta out. 16 out of the 21 who started are still running at Silverstone on lap 54 with 6 to go at the end of this one. And there is the race leader, 28-year-old David Coulthard. That is his girlfriend, Heidi, going through the worrying period that all women go through when they're standing in a garage or in the pit lane watching their man and knowing that in just a few laps' time he could have broken the spell that's been over him. Mika Häkkinen is coming out to the front of the garage, hopefully to see his teammate win the race, and Schumacher and Frentzen are even closer together, battling for 3rd.
Yes, I think Häkkinen will be well pleased if Coulthard can win this. Remember how much Coulthard helped him in the second half of last year, following him behind him, supporting him to help him get that World Championship. So Häkkinen will not feel bitter at all about this at all if Coulthard can get through these last 6 laps.
Yes, we must not say he's going to win this race. We don't know. There's still some way to go, and you can never be sure in Formula One. Let's hope that Damon Hill... And look how much closer they are to Damon Hill. They being Frentzen, his teammate, which is that blob, and the one in front is Ralf Schumacher. 3rd, 4th and 5th, all in the same picture. 1st and 2nd would be if we were looking at them. The gap between Coulthard and Irvine is 3.2 seconds. We are on lap 55.
Yes, Irvine's now decided to start his final charge. His fastest lap of the race, a 1:28.7, gap down to 3.2. So Coulthard's going to have to step back on the gas a little bit to make sure he can win this motor race. There is Irvine coming over the Vale into club. He's decided now in his last few laps, he's got to get on and try and push David into a mistake. David has got the faster car. He's got to pull out all the stops, and there you can see the gap for yourself.
Yes, you remember David Coulthard said on the grid to Louise, well, Eddie Irvine has got the mouth, and I hope that I will have the ability to win this race. It looks as though he may well have. Here is the order on lap 55. David Coulthard leads. Eddie Irvine, you're looking at, is second. Schumacher third. Frentzen fourth. Hill is still fifth. Deniz is sixth. Fisichella is seventh. Trulli is eighth. Wurz is ninth. Zanardi is 10th and Barrichello is 11th. Panis is 12th and Johnny Herbert 13th. They're all on the same lap. Alesi has been lapped, is 14th. So has Genet, 15th. Takagi has been lapped twice and is 16th. They are the runners, and we are now on lap 56.
Well, it was the rain in France that made it exciting. It was the crashes in Canada, but here it's been the pit stop and the strategy, hasn't it?
Indeed it has, and frankly, if David Coulthard can keep going the way he is going without any car problems, try as Eddie Irvine may, I can't see him closing down 3 seconds gap in the 4 laps that are left after this one and getting past David Coulthard as well. Time will tell, and it's not going to be very much longer before we know the answer. Frentzen is striving now to get past Schumacher. He's tucked up right under the rear wing of the... Well, it's extended a bit because there, third, fourth, fifth, and look how much closer Damon Hill is. Between the third and the fifth cars, there are just about 4 seconds.
Well, I say again, driver of the day, Ralf Schumacher, for my money.
Yes, here, he's yet again driven an absolutely superlatively good race. Because let's remember too that the engine in Ralf Schumacher's Williams is nothing like as good as a customer engine as the Mugen Honda that is in Frentzen's car, the Mugen Honda that is in Damon Hill's car, let alone the Ferrari of Eddie Irvine and the Mercedes-Benz engine of David Coulthard. Great, great drive. Lap 57. 3 to go after this one.
Frentzen just missed his braking point there into Brooklyn's. For some reason, both Coulthard and Irvine were quite slow on that last lap, back into the 1:29. So whether there's a little bit of gravel on the trap or a little bit of oil, we don't know. But they were both quite slow. The gap now down to 2.9. Not quite all over yet.
I was talking about Ralf Schumacher, and he's already had a 3rd place in Australia. He's had 3 4th places. He's had a 5th place. He's had a very reliable car. He's only failed to finish twice this year at the San Marino and Monaco Grand Prix. If he can get a 3rd place in this race, a podium position, the Schumacher family will be delighted, Williams will be delighted, Supertech will be delighted, and so, of course, will Ralf.
Back marker now for Coulthard in these remaining few laps, so Coulthard needs to clear that one quickly.
Marc Genet in the Minardi.
Yes, I think he's going to catch him in the complex, so hopefully Genet, being a bit of a new boy, hopefully he'll have his wits about him and see the 2 leaders coming up behind him. But remember, Coulthard passed Herbert in 95 to take the lead of this Grand Prix, but had a stop-and-go penalty after that.
Right.
So Coulthard has led the British Grand Prix before, nearly won it, but today he's got his best chance. He should just about have enough straight-line speed to pass that Minardi before the first corner. Yes,
yeah, clean as a whistle. Now Eddie Irvine's going to have the same problem. Genet is taking all his time to keep the Minardi on the road. It's his first Formula 1 race at Silverstone. Now watch Eddie Irvine close up on the Minardi. Look at the difference in power and speed between the Ultimate Works car and the very hard-trying Minardi team, who've got the latest evolution of the Ford V10 engine in it. But this is a bad time, and Eddie Irvine surges through. Lap 58, 2 to go at the end of this one. Irvine had closed the gap down to 2.4 seconds. Has he lost time?
Yes, I think Irvine was the net winner of that back marker because Coulthard caught him and had to take a very tight line into Copse. Irvine was much wider into Stowe, so I think that gap's going to come down a little bit, but Coulthard seems to still have enough pace.
There will only be 2 laps left of the British Grand Prix at the end of this one. They're on their 58. So it's a very close battle, just as close for 3rd position between Ralf Schumacher and Heinz-Harald Frentzen, with Damon Hill in 5th position and not closing the gap on Frentzen at the present moment. Deniz is still in 6th position. Hopefully it looks like another point for Sauber. It's all tense in the McLaren garage. Is there 10 10-year drought of victories at Silverstone, the British Grand Prix, going to be broken in the next few minutes. It certainly looks like it, because David Coulthard is on his 59th lap out of 60, holding the lead over Irvine, and that is Fisichella battling with Rubens Barrichello, who is surging. And remember, Barrichello had that problem, and he's now in 10th position.
Yeah, that was Barrichello. Yes, Barrichello recovering. Remember, he had that puncture and fell down the field from 5th place. So Barrichello recovering up to 10th place.
Yeah, and Barrichello's next target is Jarno Trulli. There is the Prost, which is in 8th position, so Barrichello is up to 9th place. Well, one can say that the Stewart Ford is maintaining the progress that it has been making all season. It's very bad luck for Barrichello that he got a puncture. And there's Ralf Schumacher, 3rd. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, 4th. Damon Hill is 5th. Takagi in the background is 16th and has been lapped twice. And it looks rather as though Ralf Schumacher is going to manage to stave off Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Meantime, David Coulthard still naturally on that 59th lap out of 60. You're looking down at him now, and the gap between himself and the Ferrari of Eddie Irvine. 10 points potentially for Coulthard, 6 for Irvine.
Well, Coulthard had that bad start in the restart, but kept his head, didn't throw it off the road, didn't take a desperate lunge at Irvine, and when it mattered, Coulthard put in a couple of blistering laps to get track position, and I think that was a key part of it. He mustn't take it away from David. He really did do what he had to do, showed a lot of maturity. I don't think the car's exactly to his liking today, but he somehow made it stick at the right moments.
David Coulthard is a Scottish gentleman. He has never let the pressure get to him. He's not letting it get to him now. He's on the last lap of what has been a memorable British Grand Prix. Not for altogether the best of reasons, but this is certainly one of them. David Coulthard driving home. The Union Jacks and the Sultars, if there are any down there, and I'm sure there must be, are waving for David Coulthard and for McLaren, heading up for 10 World Championship points, which will bring McLaren within 2 points of Ferrari in the World Championship. And neither Mika Häkkinen nor Michael Schumacher, the 2 World Championship leaders, will have scored. Eddie Irvine will get 6 points to bring him onto the same number as Michael Schumacher. It has been a quite incredible British Grand Prix. We are now into Luffield 2. There is just Woodcote. And stand by, David Coulthard from Twynham, Scotland, wins the British Grand Prix for McLaren, and he beats Eddie Irvine by 1.8 seconds. Well done, David Coulthard. And Ralf Schumacher there is battling for 3rd position in the closing stages of the race. Heinz-Harald Frentzen trying to take it away from them. Where is Damon Hill in the background? The answer is that he's 5 seconds down the road now. Damon has settled for 2 World Championship points as Schumacher finishes 3rd. Frentzen finishes 4th. We're with Damon Hill now. This is the last in-car shot from Silverstone you're going to see with Damon Hill. The crowd rises and Damon Hill clips almost to the pit wall to go up alongside his team and gives us a wonderful wave from the cockpit. The last time we'll see him at Silverstone. A great, great driver saying goodbye to his fans at Silverstone and everybody around the world from the British track. And David Coulthard says hello from the cockpit.
Well, if Coulthard's going to win a Grand Prix, his first one of the year, it may as well be the British Grand Prix. Tremendous effort there from Coulthard. That makes it his 5th Grand Prix win of his career. And is he going to enjoy this? He's got a barbecue going on tonight, I think, at his motorhome, and that'll be a very happy place to be. David Coulthard.
Well, a wonderful moment there, kissing of the trophy and the champagne spray. David Coulthard, he's certainly, we said at the top of the show, it was about time his luck took a turn.
Absolutely, and I think at around about this stage he'd be saying to Eddie Irvine, what were you saying about me a week or so ago?
He won't forget that in a hurry.
No way, I wouldn't let him. OK, well, there you go. David Coulthard from Eddie Irvine, Schumacher, Frentzen, Damon Hill, 5th, great place for him, and Pedro Diniz in 6th position. Häkkinen still leads the championship, 40 over Schumacher and Irvine now equal 2nd, Frentzen 4th, David Coulthard jumps from 7th to 5th, and Rolf Schumacher in 6th with 19. The Constructors' Championship, Ferrari still in the lead with 64 over McLaren 62, Jordan 31, Benetton, Williams in 5th, and Stewart still in 6th with 12.
Yeah, and I'd like to just apologise for there'll be no British national anthem for this time round, because obviously the race has been going long. We've got to be guided by the host broadcaster, so we'll take a break, but we will come back with the interviews.
Congratulations, gentlemen, the top 3 finishers at the British Grand Prix, David Coulthard, Eddie Irvine and Ralf Schumacher. David Coulthard, your 1999 British Grand Prix champion. How do you feel?
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. You know, when I realised after my team got me out in front of Eddie in the last stop that potentially, bar keeping out of trouble, I could win this one, it was more nerve-wracking, I think, than at any point in my career. It's been such a long time since I had a win. And obviously with Mika out, I knew that the whole team was relying on me to score those points. But nonetheless, I have to say this is definitely the best feeling I've ever had in my racing career. To win this race, I think, is, you know, always has been, you know, the one that I would trade for any other win, to win in the British Grand Prix. So it's fantastic, and it's completely down to my mechanics today, who both times managed to get me out in front of Eddie. Otherwise, I think we were, you know, he was a little quicker at the beginning, I was a little quicker at the end. We were pretty evenly matched, so whoever had track position was going to win this race today.
Even better than that, obviously with your 2 main rivals not scoring, do you think these 10 points put you right back in the championship again?
You know, it's early days for that as well. I tend not to look at the big picture of the championship, because you have to take each race as it comes, and clearly with 4 non-finishes this year, then it hasn't been going that well. But to come back here and obviously, you know, you never want to benefit from an accident, one competitor. So obviously I hope that Michael is okay, and I'm not sure of his injuries, but hopefully not too severe. And for Mika, obviously having a problem.
Thank you, David. Eddie, you were going well there, but you had a very long first pit stop. What happened?
Yeah, it was the first time I'd come into the pits really with the McLaren guys out, and I went past the McLaren guys, and next thing I see my guys very, very close to me, and I wasn't going to get stopped really, and I just overshot, and I think that's what took them that little bit longer to get the fuel on, and ultimately cost us the race.
You seem to be able to go a lot quicker, actually, in the race trim. Did you work on the car a lot since warm-up?
Warm-up, yeah, we just tried something. You know, we just tried to make the tyres live longer, but it just wasn't. It was a no-hoper. We persevered with it all morning, but it wasn't going to happen, so we just went back to our standard setup.
Now, obviously, with the injury to Michael, you're now likely to be team leader for a few weeks, and you're actually in the World Championship hunt. How does that affect the way you look at the future races?
I don't know. I don't know what Michael's story is. I don't know. I think I heard he's all right, so he should be back in for the next race, and it'll be business as usual.
What actually happened on that first lap of the first part of the race?
Well, I got a better start. Michael made a really bad one, and I was getting a run at DC through the fast stuff, and DC has a very different line from me through the second part of the fast corners, and I had to lift off and brake to avoid getting into the back of him, and I went wide, and then I just come out onto the straight. Michael was obviously behind me, and then coming into the Stowe corner, he just came flying past me, all 4 wheels locked and straight on. So I don't know whether he maybe damaged a wing on the back of my car whenever I had to brake because of DC.
Anthony, Ralph, a fantastic drive by you today, but how easy was it for you to get back into the car knowing your brother had just been injured?
Well, I mean, straight after the red flag, I asked what happens, and I first didn't realise what happens, and after I heard Michael was having an accident, the team obviously said me that Michael was out of the car and was nothing bad, but I heard now that he got something broken. I'm not sure what happens. We're going to find out, but well, for 80% he seems to be all right, and that's the most important. And then we look what he has, and obviously it's not so nice as your brother have an accident to go back in the car, that's for sure. But at the other hand, you know, I have a team relying on me, and I have to concentrate on my job.
You drove a great race and you had a long battle with Heinz-Harald Frentzen. It seems the Williams has really improved this weekend.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have to say our team, or my team, did a really great job bringing that new aero package here to the race. I mean, at the Silverstone test, we looked nowhere, and suddenly we were a lot closer, and especially the first pit stop, I have to thank my pit stop crew because they did an incredible job bringing me out in front of Heinz, and from there on, the race went very good.
Ralph, thank you. David, we now go to Austria, where you put in a storming drive last year, I think from 17th place to 2nd. Is that a circuit where you think you can close the gap even more on Mika?
Well, in the past, we've been quite close around that circuit, so I would expect the same again. It's a relatively low-speed track, so I think that the Ferrari challenge will be as strong as ever because I think they appear to have quite good mechanical grip.
Thank you, David and gentlemen.
Speaks very well, does he? He's a class act.
He certainly does. And you notice his girlfriend's got a very similar jaw, and I was just contemplating if they had children that have a brick almost, wouldn't they, with eyes?
A brick
yeah,
with
because
eyes.
they've both got jaws like they just don't give up.
For Ralf Schumacher, I mean, that's got to be a pretty tough assignment, knowing that your brother's gone in a big one, to drive, to get back on the podium, and he still really doesn't know, as we all do at the moment, just how bad it is.
Yeah, well, I mean, they sent a runner down to the infirmary, very quick, smart, Williams did, because Frank's very clever like that. He would have got a guy down there very quick, smart, to find out as much information as they could have and got back to him and told him to put his mind at rest. But it's unsettling for sure.
Well, Eddie seems to think that it's business as usual. I mean, Eddie just said he'll be back next time. It'll be business as usual.
Yeah, he'll be training next week.
OK, well, quite an amazing race, no doubt about that. Well, of course, let's have a look at the next one that comes around. It's from Spielberg, the Austrian Grand Prix, Sunday, July 25 at 11:20. But check your local guides right around Australia in case there's a change in your area. Pretty exciting race tonight.
It certainly was, and I'd also just like to very quickly congratulate Garth Tander for winning the race up in Queensland today. A great effort for a young boy coming through the Formula Ford ranks into touring cars.
In an older car too.
An old Holden. See, beat a new Ford.
Yeah, it was pretty good, and good to see a new track too. Looked okay.
Yeah, it looked very interesting.
Alrighty, so we hope you've enjoyed the British Grand Prix. There's certainly a lot to talk about, and a lot will be read and talked about in the next couple of days. We'll see you next time round on Nine's Wide World of Sports.
This has been a presentation of Nine's Wide World of Sports.